I'm starting it. Yeah. All right. No doubt. All right. All right. Ain't not another people coming through. I just still got some other people in the back on the other one. That's all. But yeah, go ahead, guys. Like I said, I'm at 12 hours now. I just had to save that one, so you guys can go ahead and keep building on whatever you guys were at.
What I'll say to you real quick, Ryan. Look, I've my first introduction to you is you're just like all the other Christian apologists, and in the surface view, all Christian apologists are racist. I don't care if it's black or white, right? Because you are opposed to the Israelite paradigm, right? And I was a Christian, so I understand that in Christianity, the body of Christ is a spiritual body, not a physical one. It's a spiritual body, and not a ethnic or race or nationalist body is what I'm trying to say. It's not a nationalist body. Okay, so the unfortunate thing is you have the history of Christianity trying to literally erase Judaism so that they could take over as literally is what they call New Israel. Like they're the New Israel now. Okay, so we've gotten rid of the old Israel. We don't do any of the old Israel things anymore, and we have a new way of doing things. And the people who brought that in are Caucasians, so that's problematic. Okay, and so it's already bad enough that the Bible and Christianity has been used in slavery. The whole colonizing thing that Anon is speaking of. Okay, so it's bad enough that Christianity is a major part of colonization because it comes with that. When Europeans colonize, they bring Christianity with them, so they colonize with Christianity. Okay, so that's incredibly problematic. When you have the combination of these factors in opposition to a people who are the victims of it, right? The the automatic knee jerk reaction is you're racist and you hate black people and et cetera, et cetera. Whereas I understand that yourself and even what's his name, vocab, you're rebutting the aggressive one West doctrine of the messianic era, where white people are going to be slaves, et cetera, et cetera. You're rebutting the aggressive one West doctrine of white man is Esau, God hates Esau, so God hates you, and we hate you, and a lot of hate going on, right? A lot of bad energy being thrown around. Okay. Now, as a nationalist, and I am a nationalist, I do believe in what the Most High said that Israel should be, which is a set apart nation. I believe that Israelites who are both ethnic Israelites and converted Israelites, because there are both, okay, I believe that Israelites should have their own towns and communities, and we should build with one another and deal with the outside nations accordingly, be it business or being a light to them, what have you. But we should be a set apart nation. We clearly aren't that, which is problematic, right? But when it comes to uh, hate, I don't hate anybody. I don't hate anybody who doesn't hate me. Now, if you hate me, we got a problem. Okay. So, but as far as hate goes, no, I don't hate anybody. I wasn't born and raised a bigot. I had that in my heart for a minute after I woke up because, like I said, when you wake up, it's a knee jerk reaction. I still watch black journals all the time. I still learn and study and will continue to do so for all the historical uh, transgressions that the Caucasian race has done to my people, whether they're an Israelite or not, because I do understand that everybody who's on the transatlantic slave trade or who is in the African diaspora via the transatlantic slave trade or any of the slave trades for that matter, they're not all Israelites. I'm not on that. I know that is a more of a religious understanding than it is an actual understanding. But I do know that Israelites are on those slave ships. We are in the African diaspora, and we have suffered under the tyranny of these things. And yes, I believe, right, that is I know we say fulfillment, and the word fulfillment is also a knee-jerk reaction because fulfillment means it's supposed to end there. What I'm going to say is this: it's a perpetual, continuity of the covenant that was given to us 4,000 years ago at Mount Sinai. It was a perpetual covenant, which means if we constantly expect to receive the blessings, if we follow the law, statutes, and commandments, and do the will of the Most High Yah, we should also at the same time constantly expect to receive those curses, right? Curses on one mountain, and blessings on another. We expect to receive the blessings if we continue to do, the will of the Most High via following His covenant. We should expect to also see those curses if we continue to disobey. So, the transatlantic slave trade, yes, is a perpetual continuity. It's a perpetual continuity of that covenant because the covenant has not gone anywhere. The covenant has not ended. It's not gone anywhere. So we should expect to see that continually throughout time until the coming of the Mashiach, however that's supposed to look and however that's supposed to change. But as far as, do I think you're a bigot or a racist, Ron? No, I'm not even going to use my friends are black thing. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to use the energy that I see you giving. Yes, you got caught up in the Sinnet or spider web, but you also flew into it at the same time. You chose to do that, bro. So you chose to bring upon yourself the energy that you're receiving from people because you chose to go on Signetter's platform and bang on Hebrew Israelites. So you did bring that on yourself, okay? But do I think that you're a bigot or a racist? First of all, I don't know what kind of power you have to even be a racist, so I don't think you're that. But do I think you're a bigot? No, I'm not a bigot, but I am a nationalist. You know what I'm saying? And that is never going to change. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
Well, your favorite basketball player was John Stockton, so you can't be racist. No, I'm joking.
You're funny as hell.
But I'll let somebody else go ahead. I'm gonna grab
Anon has to respond to my views on judgment.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Just I guess a question real quick. Do you think that there are contradictions in the scriptures?
I do. I think there are contradictions in the scriptures.
All right, got you. That makes sense for me. It all makes sense for me now at this point. So I'll just give my stance. I'll be really brief. And then, if it goes somewhere and we have a deeper conversation, we can. When we read the Bible and we have specific laws on how a man is supposed to interact with a woman. So something like forcible sex, right? And I don't want to say these words, so I don't want the algorithm to mess with Ryan's channel. But forcible intercourse between a man and a woman is punishable by death, according to the Torah. Deuteronomy 22, Ron? We agree with that? Like Deuteronomy 22, I'll give the verse real quick. Deuteronomy 22, I want to say like starting at 25. You're down here. Yeah, 25. But if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field and the man force her, that word, that's the word for forcible intercourse in the Bible, right? Force her and lie with her. Then the man only that lay with her shall die, right? But unto the damsel there shall nothing be done. And you can read the rest of 26 if you want, right? But then there are laws of how you should act upon a woman if you court her, or let's say you seduce her, like you met her, you talked her out of her clothes, and then you slept with her. Now, you got to stay with her all the days of your life, right? We don't see that in Deuteronomy 21, right? And so that's why, certain contexts, or from what we can see, words matter. But even the interpretation by, different scholars and different, even some people deal with the rabbis, there are certain targums, like any of those things, the conversation is never about an acceptance of forcible sexual intercourse, right? Especially during the time in an archaic world where as soon as you went to war, if you saw a woman, they would just ravage these women, right? At this time, from an ancient Near East text and an ancient Near Eastern conversation, this is much more of a humane way of dealing with a woman. Now, I do agree with you of like, how can we have a conversation, man? We went to war, you know, you're a captive. How can you consider that to even be something that you would do? If you want to say that that's a form of Stockholm syndrome or something like that, then okay. But to say that it is justified according to the Bible to just go and basically just ooga booga, I'm a caveman, now you're mine. That's not even what the text says, because that's the reason for the weighting of the paring of the nails. That's the reason for the shaving of the head. That's the reason for all of those things. You can say forced. I don't even. I'll go look at the verb stem to see if it's meant to be viewed as something that is forced, right? But every scholastic article that I've read about this is talking more about cleanliness and purification rituals as well, because they're a different nation, right? So the conversations here are, I think there's nuance that needs to be had, because while others will look at that and be like, he's telling the truth, that's telling the truth from an emotional knee-jerk reaction, right? But these people wouldn't have viewed it as, yo, I can just go grab this woman and I can have her. And then on top of that, now I'm not saying, this sounds great either, right? But on top of that, if things don't work out between that man and that woman, now all of a sudden this quote unquote captive is able to go free, right? As soon as that quote unquote captive marries this man, that woman now has rights within this kingdom, right? So it's not like one of these things where like you just took this woman and now she's your your sexual slave. That's not the context. So I understand from a human or emotional standpoint that like, okay, none of this feels cool. Like I don't want to just go out and go to war with anybody, right? But if we're talking about, as you and I both are, we both agree, at least especially in this space, I am a nationalist, especially as it pertains to us building and becoming unified as the people who we say we are. Moving forward, these are the conversations that we got to have. And so at least you and I would agree in the sense of that's not how we would interact today, right? And we would also agree that it's not a command that when you go, you must do these things, right? And so if we look at those 2 points and put them on the table first, now the rest of the conversation revolves around interpretation and how it was looked at by our previous predecessors. And I would just say we don't see it being interpreted as this is just a free will, like a free, a freedom of choice to just go snatch up any woman that you want to have and just go sleep with her. So I would vehemently disagree with that point, because it does contradict the laws. Meaning, if you just grab a woman and you decide to just sleep with her and she doesn't want to, that's punishable by death.
Okay, so I have to be responsible in my response to that, because one, everything you said is correct. That's first and foremost. And two, there has to be an understanding of where I'm coming from when I say what I'm saying. When we talk about this being a judgment, there is a double-edged sword to this, ironically, right? The double-edged sword being that, unfortunately, the victim suffers what the victim suffers, but also the aggressor then suffers as well, right? The aggressor can either suffer, as which the laws that you just laid down. And please understand that I don't see every act of this as being a judgment. There are victims who suffer this just out of, human wicked response. It's just a wicked act that a person is performing, and in that regard, yes, the necessary judgment needs to be carried out for this particular person. But let's use a couple of examples. First, the example we're already talking about. Okay, so do I see this as forced? No. I could get into a lot of nuances with that. I really can. But for the sake of not triggering people too much, I want to try to tread lightly here. So my thing is, right, this is what makes the oral tradition very important, because one, in the oral tradition, it explains that this is actually an act that the man shouldn't be carrying out in the first place. He's allowed to do it because she is a spoil of war. So he's allowed to do this. But do you know that the oral tradition says that the results of the man marrying and having children with this woman, that the children are going to be wicked? Do you know that's his punishment for carrying out this act, that he's going to have wicked children? Keep in mind, he is marrying and procreating with a woman who is outside of his nation in the first place, which is also against the law. We are not supposed to marry with the women of other nations. We're not supposed to have children with the women of other nations. But in this particular instance, because she is a spoil of war, we're allowed to essentially break that law. But the issue is, the reason why she has to sit at your doorstep with her hair shaved and her nails pared is, again, as I said earlier, this is meant to be a deterrent. It's meant to actually turn you off of her and change your mind, and this then essentially just make her your slave. But no, you already have it in your mind that you are attracted enough to this person that in another 13 days, you getting your thoughts in order. Okay, how this blessed evening is going to be carried out, right? So you have the right to do this should you choose to. Now, what the Bible or any other text that I'm aware of doesn't say is how the woman feels about this. And again, nobody is going to convince me that this woman is in 100% agreement with this, be it 30 days or a year. The only way, and there are scenarios to everything. The only way that this woman feels like she is psychologically down with this is if she was in hell in the first place and you actually freed her out of it. If she was suffering in the home that she lived in, and then you became that knight in shining armor that showed up, killed everything in the house, and then liberated her from her situation, well, now I can see her being down for it. She may not even want to wait the 30 days. She may be just down for the cause. You know what? I appreciate you getting me out of this hell I was in. Look, I'm with it. You know what I'm saying? You're an attractive man anyway. Look, I'm down. Just do this. You know what I'm saying? Get the wedding bells going. Let's do it. But on the other side of that spectrum, this young lady was in a happy situation, and she loved her family and her people and her position in life, her station in life, her life period. And you forcefully extracted her from that via extremely violent methods. And now this woman has either 30 days or 1 year to become your wife and lay with you. We're talking about, we all know, first of all, people think with their feelings anyway. Both man and woman think with logic and think with their emotions. Both do it. But we all know that the consensus is men think with logic, women think with their emotions. As a matter of fact, there's plenty of incidences in life that prove that any damn way. Okay, men tend to think more with logic. Women tend to think more with the emotions. You mean to tell me that a woman who has been emotionally not scarred but traumatized, is going to emotionally get herself up to want to lay with the man who has emotionally traumatized her? No, no. She is a victim of a judgment that the Most High put on that entire city, which is the reason why we showed up in the first place. We showed up to that city to judge it, which is why first we offer it shalom. Again, to offer this city shalom is to offer it terms of you have to pay us tribute and you have to basically be our slaves. When we need work done, you're doing it. There's a couple of other things, I just can't think of them right now. But that is a judgment on itself. Why? Because this is a wicked nation, a wicked city in which we are judging. And the objective is to give them time to actually turn from these wicked ways and, yes, adopt the Most High as their true and living God and walk in the right way. Remember, all the nations, all of them that existed in this era, in this time, they all come from Shem, Ham, and Yafet. The laws that were given to Noah and given to Shem, Ham, and Yafet are, you are to have no other gods before me. That was the law given to Noah and his sons when they came off the boat in the first place. So now that this era exists, all the nations are violating these Noahide laws in the first place. So they're under judgment, which is why we come in, because we're supposed to be a light to the nations and purify the world. Okay, that is the role we are supposed to play, which is why we're not supposed to mix with them. We're not supposed to adopt their customs, and we're not supposed to marry their women. Okay, we are set apart for a reason. Okay, so since they're in violation of these laws, that is the role we're supposed to play, and they are to be judged for this. Okay, so they're under judgment regardless. So when we show up to them, we're showing up to judge them in the first place. If they agree to the first terms, which generally anybody with a spine and a backbone probably won't do that. They're probably not just going to let, excuse me, some people come in and take them hostage for the most part, because it's basically what you're doing. So they're going to push back. Okay. Once they push back, well, now comes the alternative. Now we go in and we do what we do. And this beautiful young woman, being a spoil of war.
Right.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish. And then I'll just
okay. This beautiful young woman, being a spoil of war, is allowed by us to be taken as a wife first. Now, if you want to get into the oral tradition, the Rambam and the Ramban say something different. I'll let you find that on your own.
No, okay? I agree, but that's why it's important.
Right.
Look, and I agree with that. That's why it's important to go look at all of them and kind of get to the point where we make certain conversations, right? Or we have certain conversations. Here's the few things.
I'm just doing a mic check quick. Is my mic all right? Is it
yeah, we hear you. We hear you
great.
All
right.
Pause. But yeah.
So that's why I say it here. but man, Ryan jumped off. I want to try to wait for him to come back. I don't want to just talk about it before he comes back, because there are a few questions that I had just specifically pertaining to what oral tradition said, what about the children being wicked, also the conversation about not marrying any other race or group of people. To my knowledge, there's only 7 people that we weren't to be sleeping with. But when we look at this, I also, the main point I wanted to ask is, if you're saying that she has no choice, then how do you come back and say that this is not forcible, right? And so that's where the rubber kind of meets the road. If she doesn't have a choice, you're saying that we just take her because it's a judgment, and she doesn't have a choice, then
it would excuse anything.
Right. And so now we move into a violation of the actual Torah, right? And so that's just the main question that I wanted to deal with, I guess, first.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is my mic making an echo?
No, there is no echo.
No? All right, because I'm just transferring over to my phone because I got to run over to the store. My bad. All right, go ahead, guys. Sorry.
Hold on.
Okay, so let's address the choice matter here. Okay,
Well, just
so
did you understand the point that I was making though? Like, so if
yeah,
because you're
yes.
saying that she doesn't have a choice, so if she doesn't have a choice, then how can you say that it's not forced anything from that point on? And then if it's forced, and we're looking at it from a woman's perspective, which I'm comfortable with having that conversation, right? Like, okay, there's something we got to examine here. But if we're saying that she doesn't have a choice and it's forced, then it is definitely then become a violation, right? And then my second question at some point in time is if that's okay, then why does the Most High even tell them to wait 30 days? Or even if we say some other people say a year, like if it's just okay, then why not just grab her and go right then and there? And look, I'm not a proponent of, I want to make this clear. I'm not telling nobody to go to war and take people's women and do these atrocious things to them that we're talking about, right? Because I know people try to take anything I say and clip it up. So I'm definitely not a proponent of assaulting anybody. But I'm trying to iron out the interpretation of the law at this point. Go ahead, brother.
That's why I have to be responsible with what I say, because I know that in this social media sphere, people do that. They will take what you say, clip it up so as to create a specific narrative as opposed to what's actually being said. Okay, right. So again, first of all, and to address your last point, it is a choice. You don't have to do this. The Bible doesn't say, the Most High in his commandment, in his law, didn't say that I command that you take one of these women and make them your wife. No, he says that I allow you to do it. Okay? But you're actually not supposed to. Why? She's a woman of another nation, A. And then B, that's the whole point of the 30-day period or the year period, however long you want to go with that, right? That's the point of the pairing of the males.
If it's forcing, like the time period don't really matter. I agree with that.
I dig it. But that's the reasoning for the shaving of the hair and the paring of the nails and her sitting on your doorstep literally every day, weeping, right? Like, she is meant to be a turn off to you. It is meant to turn you off of her. But because you have the right to bypass all of that, you know what I'm saying? You can still proceed as you originally planned. Okay. So nobody has to do this. You just have the option to do it because she is a spoil of war. Now, with the forced part. Okay. So, and I would ask you, who is a scholar, to, and you can Google it if you want to or whatever. Go look up what the Rambam and the Rambam has to say about that. It's interesting, right? But as far as the forced part goes, now, this makes it difficult because we don't exactly know, or at least I don't exactly know how this works. The question is, what are her options? Once she is put in this position by the person who has her in this position, what are her options? Are her options to either, okay, well, you don't want to go with this, then boom, you're just going to be a slave then, right? Or are her options either get down or lay down, right? You have a choice between life as my wife or death as not my wife, right? The only way she even gets to go free after you make her your wife, because once you make her your wife, now she has 1 year to convert to being an Israelite woman. She has 1 year to do that. If she, in that 1 year's time, does not convert to being an Israelite woman, i.e. she goes through the whole conversion process, she adopts the Most High God as the true and living God, she renounces all of her previous beliefs and faiths and worship systems, etc., and she is living the new life as your Israelite wife. She has 1 year to do that. That's why I say, if you're not pleased with her, you could put her away. If within that 1 year she does not convert to being an Israelitish wife of yours, you put her away. Now she gets to go free. You can't sell her as a slave, et cetera, et cetera. She gets to go free and do her own thing. Okay.
Right.
So that's where that comes in. But until that happens, she has that 1 year of being your wife. Now, these are where the cringe nuances come in, because there's no documentation, there's no physical explanation of what this year looks like, what this wedding night looks like, how this thing actually goes. We don't have that. So it's really left up to imagination and interpretation. Okay, that's left up to imagination and interpretation to see how that even looks, right? Because let's say the woman is her choices are either I have to be this man's slave, and let's say she has children, so you're essentially adopting the children as well. So if she has to go be a slave, her children has to go be a slave as well. Well, she doesn't want to be a slave, she doesn't want her children to be a slave, so the only option is to be your wife, which means she has to lay with you whether she likes it or not. And I'm going to tell you, I don't think she likes it. Or worse yet, the other option is death. Either I die or I just go through with this. Now,
okay, that's why I disagree. Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
So now we move it into the spaces where I disagree. So I am somewhat familiar with both Rambam and Ramban's teaching and thought process on this, right? I can go back and get the nuances. If I intermix their thought process on this, then you can correct me if you know it straight off the top of your head, right? But even when it comes to this, after that 30-day waiting period, according either to Ramban or Ramban, she had the right to refuse the marriage, right? According to even the rabbis. And I can go get it. I can go get, even in the Talmud, I want to say, there's an understanding that she had the right to refuse the marriage, right? And even if I'm not mistaken, the one thing that I really disagree with, but the most gross part of this that we can see is one of them, either Ramban or Ramban, says that they're permitted to have sex once. And then after that, even if she decided she didn't want to do it, or if he decided, like, there is no punishment for her. As you said, she's even allowed to go free, right? So there's clear-cut conversation by these guys about she's not forced after that mourning period to marry. So I do agree that mourning period is to give them pause for the cause, right? I also agree that the way they interpreted this was because of your sexual desire towards this woman, right? That's why the mitigation, or that's why the conversation is even had about being able to sleep with this woman, right? But it doesn't seem that they agreed that she had no choice. That's the biggest point that I want to point out, right? Interpretation seems to be that they felt that after that mourning period, she had the right to refuse, right? Which would then bring me back to the point of she's not viewed as, an intercourse to like a sex slave. So, and then there was something else that you had said about we aren't to mix with any other nations. To the best of my knowledge, there were 7 nations that we were told we can't mix with. While I do agree with endogamy or endogamy, meaning you marry within your people, I do agree with that, right? To say that we are specifically forbidding from, at least in the text, in the Torah, from being with any other group of people, I would say I disagree with. And even as it pertains to Moses, let's say he had like a Ethiopian wife. So I would say, if you can show me those things, and then also then your response to the best of my knowledge, neither one of them said that she didn't have a choice. She actually had the choice to refuse the marriage. And I can go and real quick and just try to search exactly which writings would support that if you need me to. but I was wondering your thought
Yeah,
process.
I would ask you to do that because I'm going to tell you, I was not aware of that. I was not aware of what you're saying that the Rambam and the Ramban said that she has a right to refuse. I'm aware that they said that there is an act of sexual intercourse before the ritual. Like you get one act of sexual intercourse before this 30-day ritual. You're allowed one act of sexual intercourse before that ritual even begins. Now,
I want to say Maimonides, Rambam says that if I'm not mistaken. Ramban, if I'm not mistaken, does not. But, I'm pretty sure Rambam does.
Right. Okay. So now the narrative that you just brought up, because I'm not aware of that. Okay. And I need to be so that I could be edified with that, because if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Okay. Doesn't matter how I feel about anything. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And if after this 30-day or 1 year period, they were still given the right of refusal, then it's absolutely not that, because it's consensual. Now, again, I'm still going to express the psychological part.
Yeah. Okay, I'm with you on that. Yeah, we're not even gonna play no game with that part, right? Like, I don't know how we get past the psychological part of any of this.
But the consensual part of it, you know what I'm saying? Because again, like I said, I don't know what that looks like. I said that there is no, certainly not in the Bible, but I don't know of it being in the oral tradition of what it speaks of when this particular night is to happen, or how the actual year of her, conversion process is to take place. Okay. I don't know what that looks like. So my view of it is, my assumptive view, okay, is that, she is given an ultimatum that makes it a little hard to refuse this option, because your options are either slavery or death, right? I still don't know, because if she, that's still a right to refusal, because you can still say no, right? You can still say, no, I'm not doing this. But then what are the options if you don't do it? What are her options if she doesn't do it, which gives her the incentive to consent? Because when you talk about the psychological aspect, I just cannot avoid that and get around it and act as if, unless, like I said earlier, you are actually liberating this woman from an already horrible situation that she was in. Maybe she was married to an abusive man. Maybe, it could be a million different scenarios. But you actually liberated this woman from that by going in and doing what we do as Israelites in that situation. Unless you are liberating this woman from a situation that she hated being in the first place, I cannot see psychologically nor emotionally this woman being incentivized willingly to do this, unless there was an ultimatum, an alternative that she had to vehemently be opposed of, which says, fine, I will go through this act with you, because I just can't see it, bro. I just can't.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get to this. I want to say it's in Mishnah Hilchot Melachim 8:2.
Okay. Let me get my other phone.
You can just go.
I want to look this up with you, because I have to be responsible.
But I want to. But even with this, I want to make it clear, like, the main point that we both agree with is this is not encouraged, right?
Yes, it's not encouraged. This is not something you have to do. Yeah. It's something you choose to do.
This is and the reason that they're saying, like, so we do with the rabbis, they're writing on it. They're saying the reason that it's put in there is because of man's wicked inclination. Anyway, he probably would do it anyway. Right?
Can you give me that excerpt one more time, so I can look that up, please?
Make sure I'm getting the right one. Mishnah Hilchot Melachim 8:2. I want to go read this specifically. I'm looking at some notes that I have on this from a long time ago. So
I actually had this. You know what's crazy? I actually had this saved, like in my saved information on the internet, like saved pages and archives and all that. One of them, they removed it from the internet completely. They removed it from my drive. They removed it from the internet. Like it basically is talking about what I'm talking about, right? They like removed it, fam. Like it's gone, which is crazy. Okay, Mishnah Hillcock, what is it now?
8:2. I'm trying to find it right now so I can give you exactly. Forgive me, man. I got so much stuff in my hard drive.
It's all good. I mean, you're a scholar. You know what I'm saying? There's so much information when it comes to Bible and history, and it's like, the fact that people even have like a person like yourself or Zion Lex or Divine Prospect, when it comes to recall on all of this information, I think it's amazing, because to be able to even recall all these things, off the top of your head is crazy in itself.
Yeah, I could speak to that as well.
All praises.
So I want to ask real quick, does anybody here have any official credentials relevant to biblical studies? Like, are they Bible scholars?
I am a Hebrew Israelite student only. I don't have any credentials. I am a student of any and all who come on and teach the Bible in whatever framework they teach it. It's up to me to listen to the information first, investigate it, do the research from it, and then formulate an opinion, which is basically how it's done anyway. I'm only a student. I'm only 4+ years in to being an Israelite. I'm 7 years in this quote unquote awakened paradigm, right? So as far as quote unquote credentials goes, I have none. You know what I'm saying?
I ain't gonna lie, fam. You're doing good though. You're doing good. Like less than a decade in this, like that's a big deal.
How about you, Anna? Do you have a
I've been to seminary school. I don't like to talk about it because then now here come everybody. Yes, I graduated from seminary school. So yes, I have some formal training. That's what I'll say.
Now I not currently, because I haven't been in the classes now for probably the entire year of 2025. But I am a student in Learn Torah Hebrew Academy, which is Zion Lex's Torah online Torah Academy. Okay, I am, the classes that I take are at first I was taking the language, because all of this is meaningless unless you know the language. You have to know the language. Okay, so first I was taking the language classes, but that fell off for 3 years now. I haven't studied the language for almost, if not 3 years, probably longer or a little less. So there's that. But the classes that I was taking was the Torah classes and the Kabbalah classes. And I do all of my Shabbats and my feast days and high holy days with Da'at Chachma, which is a Old Testament only synagogue in New York. Okay, so I get a lot of my Torah studies from them, but they're Karaites, right? They're Karaites, and I don't like Karaite only teaching, because it doesn't expand on the Torah, right? The Torah is more than just the basic 5 books of Moses, the Tanakh as a whole, and the Apocrypha, which is generally used in Jewish paradigm. So I am partial, and this is because of Zion Lex, but I am partial to what's called Pardes Torah, which is
I
Parshat.
am too. Yeah,
Yeah,
Prashad.
Parshat,
Yeah.
Remez, Darash, and Sod. I'm partial to all four aspects of Torah because that is Torah, right? It's deeper than just, the Old Testament, right? Or just the Apocrypha. It's deeper than that. You have to understand these nuances, which is why we're in the oral tradition now. We're in the Mishnah now. Why? Because it expounds more on just these couple of verses that you're getting on this extremely controversial topic here. So it expounds more on that, which you need that, okay? And if these knowledges exist, which give you the knowledge of Torah as a whole, then to deny yourself that is to shrink your brain and to shrink your spirit, which I vehemently don't recommend.
No, I'll say this, and this is why I don't. I shouldn't say that. I went to a good school. So Liberty University, in my opinion, is a very good school. At least when I was there, because it forced us to examine worldviews of multiple thought processes, right? But I'll say something, and I'll vehemently stand on this. I'll say you'll learn more about Hebrew culture by attending Maury Zion Lex's class for a year than you do, 4 years of getting, a study in religion or theology at most of the seminary schools. Just reason being is the goal is not always to go deep into Hebrew culture, Hebrew studies. I don't have a lot of issue with the Karaite teachings, right? I agree, there could be more in depth, but I can understand now where you're coming from. That makes a lot of sense how you view the scriptures, in my opinion. I think that makes a lot of, it helps me understand you more in your thought process. I will say I'm very grateful for my time in school because more than anything, it taught me research methodology, right? I was an autodidact before I went to school, right? So I'm doing all this study and have been blessed with the ability to learn and retain a lot of information. But when you start to talk to scholars who, like we said, have these things just in the top of their brain, it's important to know research methodology so you can have clear-cut ways of speaking authoritatively to a point. And then sometimes just admit, maybe I got this part wrong. And so that's why I'm saying, like, this is definitely not a hill I'm dying on. I think we both agree that this is not something that is encouraged. It is something that is introduced into the text as a choice, right? But if you want, Rand, I'll put the link in here. This is on Safaria. You can go here, and I want to say scroll down to chapter 8 and just start.
Yeah, I'm there now. In chapter 8. I'm kind of trying to skim through this so we can get
but it gets even this. As I was skimming it gives me a cause for pause and want to go back and really get back into this. Like I said, I did this study years ago, so I want to get back into this and really compare all of my notes because that sleeping with her one time and that's a real thing that's in there, and I'm really trying to understand how they even came up with that part. So the overarching thing that I want to start to point out is that as believers, we need to understand that when these things get really convoluted, that we have the right to kind of fast forward into our day and age and make some firm, hard stances on, I don't agree with that, and I would say here's the best way to address it or look at these different things. Because as it pertains to this, the reason that I'm so passionate about this is because what we see happening when Hamas invaded Israel, and we hear stories of some of these women being brutalized during the invasion. And then there are people that are coming to me saying, see, they following the Bible. That's what the Bible say you can do. First off, no, the Bible does not say that. Like, whether you agree with the part of waiting 30 days or a year or whatever, the Bible does not say just in the middle of war, ravage women savagely. But also, there seems to be an understanding, at least by the ancient rabbis and different sages, that the woman had a little more choice than what's explicitly expounded upon in Deuteronomy 21. But I would still suggest, just don't do it. Right? Just don't do it.
Now, that is the moral ground. However, when you're talking about, and this is why, it's the 30-day or year process of the paring of the cutting of the hair and the paring of the nails. Mm-hmm. She's meant to turn you off. What she's trying to turn off, or what she's supposed to turn off, is your evil inclination.
And this is exactly what they say.
Your evil inclination is what she is supposed to be turning off. However, because she is a spoil of war, right? Which is why I stand on this hill that this is a judgment on this woman and her people, right? You are allowed to, and okay, so what's interesting about the whole war issue, you are allowed to, during this war issue, violate laws that you normally aren't allowed to. Like I'm skimming over this best I can. I just remember that during
it's a hard read too, bro. Like
bro, I'm gonna tell you like this. I'm actually about to have a conversation with our good brother Divine Prospect, because he is not pushing that, and I don't know where you stand with this or not, but he is not pushing that we don't have to keep Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. But he is saying that we don't have to keep Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. Why? Because whereas he is, we're talking top 5 scholars in this whole Israelite paradigm anyway. He's definitely wherever you want to rank him, he's in there, right? So, but you said something earlier, right? You said that you don't just study the cultural, right? The cultural part of Israel, because it's deeper than that. His expertise is the cultural.
And he's amazing at it. He's amazing
when it comes to the cultural and the culture, like he's saying, culture, customs, all of that. Yeah. I mean, put him against anybody, he'll crush him, right? Yeah. However, when you only, I'm not going to say he only does that, but when you are more invested in that, when your scales weigh heavier on that side than they do on Pardes Torah, you come up with, you don't have to keep Day of Atonement. And I am so against that, not because I'm on the quote unquote Pardes Torah bandwagon, or I'm on, let's just call it what it is. It ain't because I'm on the Judaism religious bandwagon, okay? Because that ain't it at all. It's because I have, even in these past 7 years, a lot of Kabbalistic experience via cause and effect of decisions that I have made. And a lot of these things I didn't understand were going on until I come across 2 rabbis. One is Rabbi Ephraim Pavlov, and the other is Rabbi Alon Anava. Okay.
Can I do something real quick before you keep going? Because somebody may come across this and they may not be familiar when you're saying Pardes.
Go ahead.
Just so for people that may come across this, or anyone that's listening, he's talking about Pardes. He's talking about a way that we exegete the scripture, right? And so what we're saying is Pardes is an acronym for was it 4? For 4 steps. So you got Peshat, Remez, Darash, and the soul, which is like your surface level or your hints, like a deeper allegorical meaning. your daras, which is your inquiry, why you should go seek, and then the final level, the soul, which is the seeker, the mystery level. And so when we don't, in my opinion, if we aren't able to exegete, and if you don't agree with that, at least something along that, have a filter with which you exegete the scriptures. Sometimes you can get lost in holding on to the cultural paradigms. I haven't heard Divine say that, so I'll go back and listen. I know that if he's saying it publicly now, he's been probably fighting with it or dealing with it for a while. So there's a reason that he came to that conclusion. I'm still keeping Yom Kippur to the best that I can. I'm not forcing nobody else to do it. I enjoy the feast days, and I do believe that it's something that we should strive to keep. But I'll go back. I'll go find it, and I'm interested to hear him say that. But that part is conversation, and I'll give it right back to you, Rand. That part is conversation is a way that you are to interpret the scriptures. So go ahead, Rand.
So I want to, just in case this is heard, I want to be responsible. He's not talking about the feast days. He's saying we keep the feast days. He's talking about Day of Atonement.
Oh, the Day of Atonement. Got you.
He's talking about Yom Kippur only. He's saying that culturally, that's not something that we have to keep anymore, because culturally it was actually an addition, and the way that it is practiced comes from it's a deeper. Well, it's the whole, Azazel. The ritualistic aspect, putting your sins on Azazel, walking on the cliff. The other sins of the other one, you just walk it into the forest and it just goes, et cetera. Based on his studies, he sees that as actually a paganistic ritual that is inserted into the Bible as something that we have taken on, because his main battle is the pre-exilic and post-exilic culture and practices of Israel. What we were doing before Babylon, what we were doing after Babylon, right? And so, there's a huge split in the Israelite community with that alone, right? So he is of the mind and of the studies that that is a ritual that we first didn't keep at all and was only added later, and that because of because of the coming and the sacrifice of Mashiach ben Yosef, or Bar Yosef, Mashiach Bar Yosef, that we no longer have to do that, because he is the atonement of our sins. So because he atoned for our sins, we no longer have to continue to atone for our sins, because it's not necessary. My pushback on that is the argument that I am currently having with Orthodox Moor and Akan Jabba, because I actually went back to Divine Prospect's teachings, because I was actually trying to prove Akan Jabba wrong, but I forgot that Divine Prospect actually agrees with Akan Jabba and Orthodox Moor in that Deuteronomy 28:68 is not the transatlantic slave trade, that we need to get away from that that's not accurate, right? Whereas I'm like this, right? When you talk about a perpetual covenant, again, perpetual means continuous, means it doesn't stop, right? When you talk about a perpetual covenant, I understand that our sins were atoned for with Mashiach Bar Yosef. For those who agree to that, even I struggle with it, because it's a whole different tangent that I'm not going to get into. But for those who do subscribe to the atonement of our sins through Mashiach Bar Yosef, right? If everything was fulfilled as Christian doctrine believes, and as those who do not believe that Deuteronomy 28:68 is again, I want to get away from using the word fulfillment, because once you say fulfillment, it's a knee-jerk reaction.
No, it's a whole.
It's supposed to stop right there. We're done. You know what I'm saying? I say it's a perpetual continuity. It's a perpetual confirmation of Deuteronomy 28, right? And 68, that yes, as long as you continue to sin, these things will continue to happen to you. So now the question is, okay, well, what did we do to cause Deuteronomy 28 and 68? Well, we can use Mashiach Bar Yosef as an example. That's one. And the fact that the sins were so continuous, and the desecration of the temple based on, I keep forgetting the emperor's name who rebuilt it, but all of the detestable idols and whatnot that he had in there, and the detestable practices that continued, and the fact that, ironically, the way the Israelite community is split down, you have Karaites and you have basic Orthodox Israelites, right? You have those who go with Paleo Hebrew, those who go with quote unquote modern Hebrew. All of these.
All of those as denominations at this point, by the way.
Yeah,
right.
We have so many splinter denominations. It's no different than Christianity. It's just Christianity has a few thousand more denominations than we have to this point. If it keeps going, we might catch up with them. Okay.
But this is why it's important to start putting all these guys in the room, Rand. Like, that's really my issue, right? And if I got to be one of those guys that go in the room, there are a lot of people that say I need to be in the room talking and trying to get everybody in the room. Cool, we'll work on that. But if we can get all of these guys, like, imagine really getting Zion, Ron, or Divine Prospect, more, all of our top scholars, right, and getting them in the room. I think we end up in a position where we can start to really create our own mission or our own version of some of these understandings. That you can look at a codified way of understanding from a diasporic lens. Right? That's the issue that I have right now. Like, it's too difficult to come up with cohesive thought across the board. Right? And because of that, we have to figure out how to get everybody in the room, because we are turning into another form of this where we're seeing multiple denominations. And then, so like this weekend, I'm getting ready to debate a guy. And now when I want to come to the table and I want to say something like, should we use the Bible for our liberation? One of his main arguments is going to be, just open it up. We good? One of his main. No. Oh, okay. Gotcha. One of his arguments is going to be, well, there's no cohesion amongst believers, right? And so now that's a real thing that we got to start addressing. Now, I'll never run from any of this. We've had at least a couple of conversations enough to know I'm not going to run from any of it. But just to put a button on the Yom Kippur thing, I understand where he's coming. I kind of saw this, not so much coming from him. I knew eventually somebody was going to stand on the claim and say, because we do view him as an atonement, there's no reason to do this. I think now we work on, are we observing these days out of ceremonial understanding or out of whatever else the ideology may be. But I haven't heard everything he said, right? And Divine is extremely intense when he puts forth the thought. So sometimes things can get lost, but it sounds like you've had enough interaction with him on that part. Finally, I think before we talked about this, I can make an argument for Deuteronomy 28. The thing that I've heard Divine say is there's just better arguments to make at this point in time, right? Now, I don't know, maybe now he says don't even use it. That's not what it's about.
He does say he no longer subscribes to that.
He does say that he no longer.
Better arguments that could be made, but because like I said, I wanted to try to prove them wrong by what he said. But he said he doesn't subscribe to that.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I just think, like I said, I think we just gotta get everybody in the room and have these conversations. If we're saying that we really are these people, one of the things that needs to happen is that we have conversations about how we walk this out, right? What are your thought processes on Damona and the role that you think they should play in the community?
Well, I mean, they're another branch of all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
My whole thing is this: what you're saying is emphatically accurate. If I'm going to tell you, you know the reason why this hasn't happened yet? Because it's gonna be ugly, bro. It's gonna be ugly, bro. I'm talking about anything you had underlying about anybody that's gonna be in that room. All that's coming out of the table. Put it like this: what you and the other brother just went through, bro, that is going to last for a few days, if not weeks, before we can even get to problem solving, bro. That's
what's got to happen, though. Let's keep it up. That's what's got to happen, right?
Yes, that rage, that how I feel about you and what you said that day and how you exegete this and how you believe that, bro. It's gonna be so ugly, bro, that before we can even get to the orange, we're gonna have to go through the peel, and it's so thick at this point that it's gonna take days, if not weeks, to get through that, just so we can get to the fruit. And then we have to start now parsing out, how are we going to be Israel? What does Israel look like today? And how are we going to be Israel? Because what we're dealing with is, when Rabbi Matthew had this, it was a cohesive, balanced system. The issue with that is it was under what everybody's going to call Judaism. It was under Pardes Torah. And everybody, and I'm not going to name any names, but I'll just say the 60s, because of the Black Power movement.
Don't do it.
Destroyed it, bro. The 60s, because of the Black Power movement and the identity renaissance. It was an identity renaissance. I'm a Hebrew. I'm a Muslim. I'm a Kemetic. I'm a this. I'm a that. All I know is I am not a slave, right? So I don't want to be Christian, and I don't want to look like those Ashkenazic Jews. And the issue with the Ashkenazim and Rabbi Matthew was, Rabbi Matthew not only wanted to be recognized as a Jew, he wanted to be recognized as the Jew. And of course, and I'm going to say rightfully so, when you have a people who has identified, let's say the 740 AD, doctrine is true.
The Khazarian theory.
Let's say the whole Khazarian theory is accurate, right? If you listen to, I brought up Ephraim Polvanov. If you listen to him, that'll make you scratch your head, to be honest with you. But again, we're talking about narrative. And we can also go with, how they did the DNA testing and, the Igbo aren't really the Jews because, their DNA doesn't match. Well, you're comparing the DNA to the Ashkenazim, right? So if we don't say they're the real Jews, well, all your testing is wrong anyway. So, but let's just say that whole Khazarian thing is correct. That in 740 AD, these group of Khazars converted to this Judaic way of life, right? So we'll say honestly and just practically, we'll just be practical here. We'll say practically for the first 100 to 200 years, they probably identified as converts, right? And were, assimilating heavily into this religion and this way of life. And now they're B'nai Yisrael. But there's always a renaissance, always. At some point, somebody came in and said, you know what? We're not converts. We are the Jews. We are the children of Shem, Ham, and or we are the children of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We are them. We are Israel. No longer just these converts. We have been in this way of life for however X amount of years at this point. We speak the language, we carry the customs, we do it all. We are those people. Now, after that Renaissance, you fast forward 1,000 years, I could easily see how these people would vehemently believe that they are the actual true
It's
Israel.
passed down from generation to generation.
You know what I'm saying? I could easily see that. I myself have no argument with that self-identification if you believe that, because, you know, we're only 60 years removed from our Renaissance, bro. And look at it. It's a disaster. And we're literally only 60 years removed from it. Imagine being 1,000, bro. You feel me? So now, when it comes to that, because they didn't want to say, okay, well, yes, you guys are the Jews. At this point, they already got the state of Israel. They ain't about to give that up just to give it to us. Hell no, I wouldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? So I can understand that being an issue. And so now, because you have this Renaissance going on, you got, you know, brothers saying, well, I ain't identifying as no Jew. I mean, right. I am a Hebrew Israelite. I will dress this way and not that way. I ain't doing this oral tradition stuff anymore. That's Jewish. And we look, all we need is Torah. As long as we got Torah, we got everything we need. And now you have a different dress code, and you have different cultures, and you have different customs, and you have different mindsets. And then you have Abba Bivens coming into play. And then now you have a whole new branch, okay? And then you just have expansion after expansion after expansion after expansion until we get to the disaster where we're at now, where you're saying we need to get all the leaders in one room and hopefully before they kill each other, actually come to that's
the blessing. That's the blessing of Zoom, brother. That's the blessing of Zoom. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I ain't talking about no Zoom chat. I ain't talking about no, you know, we in a on somebody's channel. I mean, just like you said, bro, like come up with the money, rent a hotel or something. And I'm talking about,
man. Oh no, bro. At first,
I'm talking about
it's gonna be
like 3 to 6 months.
It's gonna be it's gonna be some furniture moving if we do
it like that.
Furniture
moving at best, bro. You better hope that we don't blow up the building, bro.
Yeah,
you know,
so that's
furniture moving is at best, bro.
Like let's. So what I'm saying is, at first, let's use technology to put them in the room with each other so they can air these.
You don't think that they have the capacity to actually sit at a table?
No.
Okay.
And I look, I've been blessed, I guess, now to be around a little over a decade and watching this, and then, you know, sitting behind the scenes watching a little longer. There are some deep-rooted offenses and hatred.
I dig it
amongst some of our leaders. Like,
I dig it.
You know, beyond just the Yeshua, not dealing with Yeshua thing, like with some language, with some personal things that have been said to each other about each other's family and friends, and if I see you, this was gonna happen, and this, that, and the other, right? So, now
I mean that happens today, for real.
Right?
I mean, the conversation you and your boy just had. I was on not too long ago, and you know, a brother, I won't say his name, but this dude, because he misunderstood what I said, and I understand how it got lost in the mix. But this dude, you know, this dude threatened my mother's life, man. This dude wished death upon my mother, fam. Look,
listen,
I'm
bro,
like this when it comes to.
I've been getting threatened by these dudes for the last 6, 7, 8 years, bro.
I get
my
it.
Kids, my family.
You gotta keep people's families off limits, bro.
Right.
You want to say what you want to say about me, fine. We could go back and forth, right? That's cool. But bro, none of my family, friends or loved ones, have anything to do with our situation, bro. I will never bring anybody's family member especially not their mother or their father or their children, bro. I will never introduce them into a debate, be it heated or amicable, because that is so off limits, bro. It is so cross the line, bro. It is so unrighteous. I don't care which walk of righteous life you subscribe to. It's not righteous. It's Lashon Hara. It's Lashon Hara. We already walked the line of Lashon Hara doing this anyway. But to bring people's family into a situation, like, you have to be mindful of, A, it's wrong, and B, bro, you don't never know if you cross this man's path and what type of time.
That's what I'm saying, bro. You don't know what type of time people on, and you should be careful. You don't know what type of time. You don't know what type of time their loved ones is on. So, for instance, there are times when people have said certain stuff, and my family is like, "Yo, what's up? We finna go see old boy right now?" No, we're not doing none of that, right? So, I think people got to take into account, all of that. Now, I will say this: people like Zion, people like Brother Divine, the elder that was on earlier volume of the book, more. Well, these are people that I think we can put in a room and try to iron out some things. I think Zion is an excellent representative of the Torah Tanakh only, even though he does deal with Messiah Yeshua. He is definitely Torah Tanakh centered. If we can get those guys in the room and start to set certain things up, then we'll be fine. I think we'll do good. But in order to really take it to where it needs to go, I don't know, man. Right. And the only thing I can say is, at some point in time, and this even goes for Christianity, right? If you're trying to look at the unity conversation, at some point in time, the Most High just going to start moving certain people out the way, right? If their goal is not to unify, then you got to start moving people out the way. And if you consider yourself to be a leader and you can't do that, then we got to question: are you really serious about bringing the people together, or is this just
How you feel? Is this your pride, your ego, and your when I look at myself in the mirror, who's looking back at me? You know what I'm saying? And how do I want the people to see and respect or revere me? You know what I'm saying? And that, all of that exists, whoever you put in the room, bro. Whoever is in that room, all of that is coming in there because, just like yourself, you're 10 plus years into this. People have built names for themselves. They've built things, bro. And they built things based off of the mindsets, personalities, attitudes, and doctrines that they have brought to the table with them. This is what their house stands on. This is their foundation. And when we come to this room, bro, the foundations are going to have to be uprooted, bro. We're going to have to uproot these foundations, and we're going to have to build from scratch, which means, and it's going to
doctrine. Some parts of people's doctrine got to get corrected, and that's what it comes down to.
And the issue is, and this is the part that scares me about biblical narrative and the free will that God gives mankind. Okay. Biblical narrative is scary. Like, I'm on chapter 8, bro. I've been skimming through this as we've been talking.
It's crazy, right?
Bro?
It's crazy.
Okay. Bro. Right? So anyway, right? And not only the biblical narrative, but you know what scares me most about the free will that God gives man? And here's another thing, right? Because I know the book says God is not the author of confusion. You asked me earlier, are there contradictions in the Bible? And I said, yes. God actually does author confusion, but there's a reason for it. The reason for it is okay, so we study Pardes Torah. Bro, not everybody is meant to wield the same weapon. Like, let's use Jedi for an example. Since you're Black Jedi, bro, not everybody is meant to know how to tap into that power. That's why there's Jedis and that's why there's Sith, bro. Right? Yeah. The Sith both have the exact same knowledge and power. But because the Sith have become emotionally corrupted, once they become emotionally corrupted, that power not only gets stronger, but it gets fierce, dangerous, destructive, and deadly. Okay? Which is why there can only be 2 Sith, because when there were more Sith, they were killing each other. So there could literally only be 2 of them because too many of them cannot exist in the same space. You feel me? Because it's too toxic. Okay? Everybody cannot have the same abilities and powers. They can't do it because the corruption in mankind is going to cause too many to wield this power wickedly. Point blank, period, which is the whole Tower of Babel situation. The oral tradition says that the reason why the Tower of Babel came about in the first place is because those people who got in that area found the original language and the names of God. And they learned how to, when you know the names of the heavenly bodies, you can manipulate them, bro. When you know the names of the heavenly bodies and
that's the point, right?
The complete, supreme, accurate way to use the language, you can literally manipulate them. And the Most High said, oh no, we're not having that. So guess what? I'm going to confuse you all so that you can no longer wield this power, because you're building this tower so that you could come up here, call on these names, and try to challenge me. And before I have to kill you all again, because that's all I'm going to do, I'm just going to confuse you and break your little house down. Okay?
But this is why I think too, this is why we have Torah, right? This is why it's important to parse Torah, whether you want to do it from a party's perspective, however you're doing it. There needs to be an understanding of how to employ these things, because I thought Ryan said something. While I think, it's important to admit that, absolute power, corrupts absolutely. Imagine though a system where over the course of the next 50 to 100 years, we have all of these young people that we're raising up, and they're exposed to the proper way of doing this thing, whatever we decide that is. Now we have a group of people who can work together and who can, run their house correctly. And that said house is just a microcosm of the macro, right? A small
the body,
right. The body. That's the goal, right? And the wild part is, I think we can find that even in this diaspora. There's ways for us to even cross the aisle and shake hands and at least exchange economics with other brothers of different thought process, exchange educational things, make sure I'm not going to threaten your family. We're all part of the same diaspora type conversation, right? Those are the things I think we can take, even as it pertains to those who aren't believers. We can at least give them the Torah as what's considered to be didactic literature, right? Literature that they can use and take to create a foundational way of living while in captivity. So that way we can all work to this place of having some form of separation and sovereignty, right?
It's interesting. You brought up Dimona. There's the Ethiopian Jews, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about a group of people who have, the Ethiopian Bible. We're talking about I don't know if it's a completely different text. I know it's not completely different, but it certainly has some
has more books.
Different things. Yeah,
definitely.
What I'm saying? And you're talking about a group of people who, said, okay, so this is where it's going to get bad, because to hear a Zion say these things when you're new and you don't really understand what he's saying, you're listening but you're not hearing, or whether you're hearing but you're not listening, okay? Mm-hmm. Or whether you're hearing and listening but you don't know, right? So here's the thing. Unfortunately, because when I had these conversations with Akan Jabba and Orthodox Moor, the conversation is, we can't use Deuteronomy 28:68, and the reason is that because basically the overall consensus is in the Israelite community, using Deuteronomy 28 and 68 says that, for the most part, everybody who was on the transatlantic, everybody who was on those ships, man, woman, and child, were all Israelites. Well, that's not true, okay? And I understand that now. I know now that that's not true. So now the question is, well, who is an Israelite and who isn't one? Because in the religion of Hebrew Israelites, it's easy to go up to any black man, woman, or child and say, you know,
You're an Israelite.
you're
Right.
an Israelite. You know what I'm saying? You know, you're the true child of Jacob, right? You know what I'm saying? And so you got to get away from Christianity and et cetera, because you're not following the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. And, you know, we're all in hell because of it. You know, you come off the slave ships. And so because of that, you know what I'm saying, you were cursed by God and, you know, et cetera. It's easy to do that. But once you stop thinking that way and you understand that just because this man, woman, or child has, you know, melanin in their skin, it doesn't make them an Israelite. So now, how the hell do you know who is and who isn't one, right? So you have to do these DNA test studies. You have to do these background checks. You know what I'm saying? Where does a person come from? What is your ethnic background? Are you a part of this group? Et cetera. Now you have to parse out who is an Israelite, right? And who isn't. And now, if you've been an Israelite your whole life, say your family goes back to the freaking 30s and you've been an Israelite, but you ain't literally an Israelite. If you want to stay one, you got to convert. Actually, as the oral tradition says, because we've been away from the halakhic practices, and this is where people like Divine and Orthodox and everybody else is jumping off the boat, because we don't have to keep that. You might be this. You might think the same way. I'm
more the space of we need to create our halakha. We need to talk about it. Yes. Oh, that's Elder Bakwash. What's up, Elder?
Hey, shalom, shalom. I apologize.
I'm sorry, Elder Bakwash. I didn't mean to disrespect you.
No disrespect taken up. I apologize for the screen. I'm experimenting. I'm trying to learn how to.
Oh, no, it's all good. You know what I'm saying? We know what you look like. We've seen you 1,000 times.
But
I thought you were the white guy in the middle there. No,
Rootin' Putin.
no, I know.
But I'll say this too, though. Like, it takes a long time to get comfortable in these studies, Ron, right? It takes a long time to get to the point where you can have these conversations. I think one thing that needs to happen is, as Israelites need to handle some Israelite business. We need to sit back, close the room up. And if some people I don't want to see nobody fight.
I dig it. I already know what you're gonna say. Hey, if blood got to be drawn, it got to be drawn. We gotta get it out on the table.
Let's get it out.
Let it hang. Just let it. I want to say that, but pause. I was about to say whatever. But look, if it has to come out, damn it, let it come out. You know what I'm saying? And we'll sort it out after that.
Because we can see a way through this at this point, right? I'm not saying you got to adopt Damona's thought process, but they left a blueprint that we can adopt and employ right now while here in this space, and surrounded with your specific teachings and remain autonomous with your group, because these leaders not finna join together. Some of these cats making too much money off of this stuff, right? Some of these cats really cannot stand each other. But I think that we can at least put everybody in a space where there's an agreement on the areas of people activity and how we can move. And that's what causes us to be a light to the rest of the world. Because if we could just do that in this destructive dispersion that we find ourselves in right now, that has pitted all of us against us, if we can figure out how to be a beacon of hope and a light of unity in that space, that immediately changes the game when it comes to everything else. And I do, just for me personally, I do think that Damona has at least set a good standard for how to look at that. Even if you don't agree that we need to go back to Damona because it's the nuclear reactor, or you don't want to go to Telerod or anything like that, viewing it as didactic literature that we can use to create a framework for a nation, I think that sets the foundation for where we need to move forward. But I agree, some of these cats is either gonna have to fight or they're gonna have to step out the way.
I'm gonna say one last thing, and I'm gonna let Elder Bakwash come in. Okay, so as far as what Damona did, as much as I agree with that, I also disagree with it because we're not supposed to be back in the land until Mashiach comes. Okay, however that's supposed to work, whether you want to say it's the Mashiach or the Davidic king, right? It's when that happens that we go back into the land, because otherwise, well, whereas I can say whatever I want. What Damona has, what the Damona Israelites have built in Damona is absolutely amazing. They have the culture, they have everything that they basically need. But you know what they don't have? Autonomy. They don't have sovereignty.
Okay, but I think that's coming though, right? I think, and that's a great point. But I just think it's coming though. I think it's coming
here. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, but that's the process. That's the practical process.
I dig that. But you know what they did in Damona, bro? We can do that right here.
That's the point. Yes, I agree.
Can I ask a question to both of
you? Well, I hope just real quick. I agree with you, Rand. That's my argument. My argument is we can take what they did and use as a model wherever you are, right here. Go ahead, Elder.
Yeah, because I got to go back to slavery. I got to go back to the job. But you're saying what they did in Damona is a great thing, and then I think Anand said we could do that here. And the same thing I brought up as far as the debates. I think y'all go a little overboard with the debates. Where is that written in scripture that could be done here or in Damona? That's my first question. And I want to make a point as far as the fighting. Sometimes the devil going to send brothers after you to put hands on you. I got into a thing with a brother a year and a half ago, and it's still ongoing. And I've been in the faith for about 32 years. I've never had to put hands on a brother. In this one situation, this brother came at me, and I struck the brother. So I'm just saying, and I'm not the type of brother that would go out and just put hands on someone. For me to put hands on you, you have to really put me in a bad situation where I have to put hands on you. But my point is, how do you know that these things must come to pass? The divisions must come to pass. That those who are the Most High chose may be manifested. But those two questions, that and the second question, where is it written that we got to set ourselves up like in Damona and in America, a replica of Damona in America?
You want to go first, Black Jedi, or what?
Yeah, I'll tap in real quick. Okay. What can you frame up for me the second question? Oh, okay. I do think the divisions are necessary for the actual leaders who are dead set on unifying and building the people up to stand up and be counted. That's my first thought process, right? And what we're talking about is the practical process of figuring out who those people are, right? Because if you just refuse to be able to come to the table and build with your brother, then as brilliant as you are, whoever it is, we kind of got to step to the side and figure out how we can live peaceably even amongst each other while in this current diaspora, because that's a part of Deuteronomy 30, right? Coming to yourself and then bringing these things to the mind of the nations while you're in dispersion. The concept of who told us to go do what Damona did. Look, I don't really want to speak disparagingly about whether they should be there or not, because now we get into different levels of interpretation. What I will say, though, is we have been told to gather yourself together. We have been told to marry our sons and daughters with each other. We have been told to plant vineyards. We have been told to educate. We have been told to practice group economics. We have been told to do our best to live according to the law. We have been told to find out or iron out cultural ways of entertainment that don't pollute our children's mind. Like, all of these things are what I'm talking about when it comes to the 10 areas of people activity. The Bible has a prescription for us to do that while in captivity. And that is, in my opinion, how that's the foundation of liberation, right? So whether or not we should go to Damona or anything like that. What I'm saying is they've provided an actual practical, tangible working model that we could take and make our own, even if you disagree with how they've done it. There are definitely things that we can do right here in America. We can go buy acres in different parts of the country and have little Yah cities, right? Little areas that are art. Even if we buy a 10-block radius in whatever cities that we seem to populate the most, whatever it is, there are things that we can do while here that forces us and causes us to come together and be able to have a more practical explanation and example of how to live out Torah even while in captivity. So I do think the Bible tells us to do that. Go ahead.
My bad, Adon. I was just going to say, if you guys have the option, I don't know if you still have it or not, to stream to your channels, feel free, because this is more of a in-house topic that you guys are talking about. So do you guys still have that option or not? Because I'm not on the top premium anymore.
Yeah, I was going to do that, but I got to go back to work, unfortunately. It's a good discussion. I would love to have streamed this.
Well,
before you go real quick.
You'll keep going. It won't stop when you leave unless you tell me to, unless you click it off or you tell me to stop it.
No, I won't be back till 8 o'clock. It's all good though. It's all good.
All right. I'm just letting Adon know too. And I don't know. Do you even have a channel, Ron, or no?
No, I don't have a channel.
You don't do not. You should start a channel, bro.
I ain't really got time for all of that, man. I'm supposed to be doing what Elder McQuash is doing right. Look, I got on the stream 2 hours ago, baby 3. I said, don't do this because you're gonna lose a day. I did it anyway. I said I'm gonna be 30 minutes. That was 3 hours ago.
The last time I was with you guys, man, I stayed up for like 2 days.
48. I remember too. It was almost 48 hours.
Yeah. So I don't come on a lot if I know you guys won't get into it, man.
Yeah, it's crazy because you tell yourself, okay, I'm gonna come on here for a quick second and I'm out, and the next thing you know, it's tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
I'm literally going through that right now. Since you said that, it's another 10 minutes and I'm out, bro. I'm telling you right now. Like I
now, you guys have a good build, man. I was listening. I had to run some errands, but yeah, it was interesting to hear the. You guys both familiar with some of the Jewish stuff. Like I haven't read any of that, like Talmud, Midrash.
You should. It'll help.
I understand. I'm more grounded in obviously the Bible itself, but more information can't hurt as long as it's just a perspective, or it might have some truth to it. So you might need it, you know, like the Deuteronomy, there's stuff that's vague in the Bible that has to have more elaboration, like that, like you guys were talking about. I don't want to circle back to it, but you know the one.
So you subscribe to the teachings of Talmud? Is that Rand? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, we're about to go through a real cringe moment in a second here. We've been kind of putting it off, but yeah, it's about to get bad in a minute. But
I don't want to do that. Let's not do that. Let's just not. We've had an amazing deal.
You don't want to go back to?
No, I don't want to do that.
You never finished the conversation.
I don't want to touch that. After going back, after getting back and getting refreshed.
What about Kabbalah?
Yes. Now because I know you're short on time. Now I know. When you hear Kabbalah, or when you say Kabbalah, or when you think Kabbalah, first thing you think is, that's that wicked, evil, Jewish, religious, witchcrafty crap. No, we ain't touching it. My whole thing is this, right? Let's make this real brief and a quick understanding of it. Energy. So we all know that the Most High is energy. We know that. We all know that everything is energy. We know that. We know we're energy. Watch The Matrix. You're a battery. Okay, I'm a battery. You're a battery. We're a battery. We're on a phone that has a battery. You know what I'm saying? Everything's got a battery. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. Question is, how do you tap into it? How do you tap into these sources of energy? What is the process of tapping into the energy? With electricity, you plug it into a wall. Not that simple, because you need the electricity to actually be in the house. So there's a process to that. Then you need the electricity to flow through the town so that it gets to the house. There's a process to that, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a source of energy. And then there are those who receive and use the energy, but you have to tap into the energy. All Kabbalah is the explanation of the system of how to do that.
Real quick, 'cause I got to get out of here soon. So let me ask you a question. The tree that was in the midst of the garden, was that energy?
Yes.
And Satan, is that in his spirit, is that energy?
Yep.
So how do I know that Kabbalah is not a source of negative energy that the Most High forbids?
How do you know that the devil is a source of negative energy that the Most High forbids?
Oh,
Right, so how do I know that the Kabbalah is a source of energy that God is against or forbids us to tap into?
Well, I would ask the same thing about the devil himself. How do you know he's a source of negative energy that the Most High forbids? It's a fair question. Let me answer your question on a fair and practical level, because that's what you're looking for. I don't want to play semantics. I want to answer your question on a fair and practical level. Okay, so how do you know it? I want to say, because this is the conversation that I have to have with our good brother Divine Prospect. I want to say you already have it in practice. You just don't know it. Whenever you pray, Elder, that's Kabbalah. Just praying is Kabbalah.
How so?
Okay, because why? Because you are tapping into the source of energy that is the Most High. You are creating a connection between you, who are here on earth, and him who is everywhere, but let's say he's just up in heaven. You are creating a line of connection, same as we're doing now. There's a line of connection. We're using it via electricity and radio waves. That is our line of connection. The line of connection between your prayer and the Most High receiving or rejecting it is Kabbalah.
So, but that's a positive. In Luke 18, it says to pray without ceasing. And
Right.
Thessalonians, it says that we should pray for good men to be in the fold. So those are positive energies. So what is a negative energy? And how, do I adapt to the negative energy, or do I resist the negative energy? Do I welcome the negative energy, or do I resist the negative energy?
Well, first of all, there's positive and negative energy in everything. It's what your spirit accesses out of it. Okay, you can learn Kabbalah all day long. If you choose to use it negatively, it will be negative. If you choose to use it positively, which is what it's for, it will be positive. It's the same thing with Anonymous Hebrew's moniker, Black Jedi, the Jedi. It's the same energy. It's the same power. You're either going to be a Jedi or you're going to be a Sith. It's where your spirit takes it. That's it.
So if Anonymous logo was Black Satan Sabbath in commemoration of Ozzy Osbourne, would that be this equivalent of what he has up there now, or would that be just to the left?
Just for the record, don't y'all put that wicked evil on me. Ricky Bobby ain't gonna be no Black Satan.
Sabbath, but
since you want to use that as an analogy, music, right? Music is energy. Okay, you have righteous music, and you have the artist that you just brought up, which is wicked music. It's music. They're using the same tool, which is music, but one is using it for wicked purposes, and the other is using it for righteous purposes. It's the same.
In a nutshell, you're saying in a nutshell, the Kabbalah can be read, but it depends on the individual how he takes in Kabbalah. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
I got two friends. I'm gonna get off after this. I got two friends, and we used to teach in the Bronx on, I don't know if you're familiar with New York, but on Grand Concourse and Fordham Road. And there was a woman selling Kabbalahs right next to the camp. And I told them, leave that alone. Don't mess with that book. And they said, no, he was curious. You know, this is a curious nature. And one particular brother, he started reading it. And when we saw him a few weeks later, he had this spirit on him that he felt like someone was after him. I know 3 people that tapped into those books and books of numerology, and they all have the same spiritual symptoms. There's someone trying to get them. They become schizophrenic and paranoid and just out of their minds. So I always been one to tell people to stay away from that, because everyone I know that went into that book, I'm not saying you're crazy. I'm just saying that something happens to them after they read that book. There's a sister that we all know. She deals in that book, and I watch it closely and over the years. And I'm just saying, everyone I know that taps into that.
Who you talking about, Elder?
I'm not going to do that. I'm a spirit, but I'm saying they never write after going to that book. So I always equate the book and certain knowledges with the tree that was in the midst of the garden. I personally believe that was certain knowledges that the Most High didn't want us to tap into, and people just have a curious nature, and when they go in that direction, they don't come back right. They don't come back right.
Well, I'm going to say people can not come back right, because when you're talking about, like, it's like, since we're talking about energy, look, I ain't no electrician, bro. So I ain't finna go to nobody's power plant and just start playing with wires, acting like I know what I'm doing. Why? Because I'm probably going to die. And I'm really not looking forward to doing that. Okay. So if I'm going to work in a power plant and do electrical work, I'm going to make sure I have the proper teacher and guide to show me what I'm supposed to be doing and what I'm not supposed to be doing, because I can die. A lot of people. I'm sorry. What
is that guide? You said you're going to go to a certain guide. What is that guide?
Well, unfortunately in Israel, in the Israelite, community, there's only one guide that I'm aware of, and that is Zion Lex, right? He would be that guy.
Oh, you're a student of Zion Lex?
Yeah, I'm a student of a lot of people, but Zion Lex, yes, I'm a student of Learn Torah Hebrew Camp. I'm a student of Zion Lex. Yes.
Are you from Brooklyn?
No, I'm in Pittsburgh.
Oh, because we live in we live in the same neighborhood practically, me and him.
Really?
Yeah. Very knowledgeable brother. But
yes. Now I get what you're saying, right? You're playing with fire when you're talking about delving into this Kabbalistic book and all of its weird teachings and all of these symbols and these signs and these things and all this weird stuff that's going on up in here. Like, what is this? I ain't trying to touch that, right? And you know what? Some stuff you shouldn't, because fire burns. Fire kills. Okay.
One more question. I'm out of here. If all that is the case in what you put on the table, why touch it at all? Why not stay in the Bible? Why go that route? There's a scripture in the Apocrypha. I don't know if you follow the Apocrypha, but it talks about meddling not in unnecessary matters. I can't remember exactly how the quote goes, but why even touch that? There's so much things to learn in the Bible itself. There's so many negatives in us that we need to correct with just the scriptures alone. Why you touch that book if it's so dangerous, or if you can veer off the wrong way? Why touch that book?
Because the same way fire burns and fire kills, fire brings light. Fire cooks your food. Fire warms you in the cold. Fire keeps you safe. If you know how to handle it, it's okay. If you don't know how to handle it, don't try to light a fire.
So that example you gave just now, can you say the Bible runs parallel with what you just explained, or is the Bible just a matter of submitting to the Most High?
The Bible is, in what I've been taught, the Bible is a book of morality. It's a moral guide. That's why I recommend, and I know this is what myself and Anon were talking about, and I know you have to go. I'm not trying to hold you. But what I recommend for every Israelite is Pardes Torah, because most Israelites are only comfortable with the Karaite aspect of Peshat and Redemes. The Darash and the Sod, they ain't trying to touch that. However, it's interesting that the Darash and the Sod don't want to be delved into when we're talking about a God that we can't see, can't touch, can't talk to face to face. You know what I'm saying? We don't know where to find him. You know what I'm saying? He's a energy that for most human beings consider him a myth at best. You feel what I'm saying? But we believe in this God. We believe in tapping into the source of the power of this God to receive his blessings. We believe as Israelites that we are receiving the energy of the curses of Deuteronomy 28 because we are in exile and captivity. So we're already dealing with the Darash and the Sod anyway. We're already dealing with it. We're already experiencing Kabbalah on an everyday basis because we are in what we believe to be is exile, which is what we believe to be the curses of Deuteronomy 28. So we talk about blessings, you're talking about curses, you're talking about energies that we extract via our decision making that we either use for the positive, which would be the blessings, or suffer under the negative, which are the curses. So when you are only familiar with, say, just the Karaite aspect of the Bible, we're just going with Torah. We're just going with what the Bible says. We don't need no more of that. You are missing what the Bible is actually saying, because it's telling you a lot more than what those face pages are reading. It's telling you more than that, but you have to know how to tap into what it's saying.
Okay, well, let me get out of here. You said a lot. I wish I could stay because I got a lot of questions. Bakwash means to search, to seek. So I'm always curious about.
Bakwash, that verse you wanted is Sirach 11:9, I think, or Ecclesiasticus 11:9. Strive not in a matter that concerneth thee not, and sit not in judgment.
Right. I'm just saying. Overall, while we're in captivity, I think who they call Christ, that light alone is enough to get me into the kingdom of heaven and to protect me while I'm on this earth. And
but you have never seen Christ. You believe in Christ because
I would take it one step further.
I see Christ.
You've never seen Christ, bro.
I would take it one step further, though.
You know what I'm saying? It's a nice picture of Christ you got there, but you've never seen him. That picture you got there is what your imagination tells you he looks like. You've never seen him.
Okay, but neither did certain apostles see Christ, and they walked in the spirit of the Most High.
And don't we question Paul all the time?
I mean, 2 more minutes because I got to get out of here. You're gonna make me get a sip back home.
Okay.
I don't think the Creator, who created our people and all people, is just going to leave us without, just flat leave us like this. I think the Word alone and the Holy Spirit will open up doors and reveal a light that we won't walk in darkness. You understand? And I think the Old and New Testament alone, mastering that and humbling ourselves to the Holy Spirit is enough to get us into the kingdom of the Most High. And let's say I'm on a path, and I believe what I just said, to pick up another book that can be dangerous or can open up doors. That can be very destructive. It's like I was talking to brothers about the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, and these intellects and these scholars and these historians, they had such a craving and a lust for knowledge. What happened when they opened that ark? It tore their behinds up. And I believe that there are a lot of instruments and books and philosophies that can lead you off the path. It will convince you that you're on the path and the Most High wants you to go deeper, but very dangerous. But I'll wrap with you another time, brother. I got a lot of questions, and Ryan, thanks for having me on, man. But I got a lot of questions, man. A lot of questions.
I would say before you go, and it's great having you on, Elder, and I'm gonna let you go. Everything that you just described, that's the Bible itself. You know how dangerous just the Bible is from Genesis to Revelations. Do you know how dangerous of a book that is?
Can you show me that statement you made?
If you want to talk about colonization, they use that book to take over the world, right?
Yeah, but they use
We've already been, for the last 3+ hours, we've been going over the nuances of just that very thing. And we've only been using, at this point, the Bible. We've only just recently started to go outside of it.
But they use it falsely. Can you back up that statement?
You say they use it falsely, which again is a point to what I made earlier about Kabbalah in the first place. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. You feel what I'm saying?
It's not how you do. It's not how you do it. It's how the Spirit.
It is how you do it. You just said.
Let me explain. It's not how you do it. It's how the Spirit guides you to do it. In Proverbs 16:1, it says that the words that come up from your tongue is from the Most High. Proverbs 20 verse 24 says, "Man's goings are of the Lord. How can a man understand his ways?" So the Most High, he gonna guide you. He ain't gonna have it that you gonna walk into crap. He ain't gonna have you that you walk into crap. But let me get out of you guys. Got me stuck here.
Yeah, because I'm about to attack you, bro. You got to get up out of here. You about to get attacked.
I'll talk to you brothers later, man. I'm
all
gonna listen.
right, God bless you, bro.
While y'all talking, I'm listening in the car. Shalom.
Yeah, peace. I'm sure Anon probably just might have lost connection or something because he would have said peace.
Yeah, because he just kind of dipped out. I don't know. Maybe that's the call to to go ahead and sound off. We didn't get to a chance to get into what I really wanted to get into, but it's all good.
What were you really trying to get into?
It's not fair to have a conversation without him being here because he has to be here to comment or
the conversation you were having with Anon?
Yes, that conversation, because he said he didn't even want to do it because, you know what I'm saying? Because to do it is, it's going to open up that can of worms that I don't mind opening. The only reason why I don't want to open that can is because, that type of conversation will get your channel flagged.
We could do that.
That kind of, I ain't saying it will, but it sure could. That kind of conversation could be problematic at best, right? But it is a conversation that is vital and important. It's just what we were talking about just now when it comes to the Bible, or what we've been talking about this whole time. When it comes to the Bible, you have those who are either atheists or just do not subscribe to Abrahamic faith, African spiritualists. It could be anybody, Hindu, whatever, right? Those who do not subscribe to or may not subscribe to Abrahamic faith, right? Don't subscribe to this polarizing book that we call the Bible, right? Because of the content that is in it. The content that is in the Bible is cringe at best. At best, it's cringe. And I know in Christianity, the New Testament is heavily, pushed and used because of the Christian theology and narrative of, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Whether you are a Trinitarian or not, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit is the basis of Christianity. Okay, so when it comes to the books in the New Testament, they're a little easier to consume because you don't have a lot of the quote unquote cringe aspects in there. That's of course, unless, you're talking about, the man and his wife who God killed because, they were mishandling the business affairs, however that story goes. Or, you're in Revelation per se, right? But, overall, when you're talking about Christian doctrine, it's, just basically the doctrine of, love, love thy neighbor as thyself. Of course, the first commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Who the first person to say that was Moshe, right? Actually, the Most High said it, but yeah, his commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. How you have Hero Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Yeah, your little thing you got underneath your name. Yeah, that. You know what I'm saying? So in Christianity, it's all about love.
That's what Jesus said was the greatest commandment, the Shema.
That is the greatest commandment, and that greatest commandment comes out of the 10 commandments, which just happen to be the law. But we're not going to get into that right now.
No, the Shema is not in the greatest.
We're not. The Shema is Shema Yisrael, Yehovah Eloheinu Yehovah Echad, Baruch Shem Kibor, Makudul Olam Moed, Ve'ahavta et Yehovah Eleheka, V'kalav V'veiko, V'kanav Sheko, V'kanav Adeka. In English, that is, Hear, O Yisrael, the Lord our God, The Lord is one. Thou shalt love, blessed be his glorious kingdom forever and ever. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Is that not the greatest commandment? Didn't you just say that?
Yeah, but I thought you just said it's in the 10 Commandments.
It is in the 10 Commandments.
I don't read the Hebrew, but
okay. So if you're talking about specifically to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, hold on, because I got the 10 Commandments right in front of me. Now this is the NIV version. It says, "I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Mitzrayim, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You should not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or in the earth beneath, and the waters below." So okay, verbatim and what's the word I'm looking for? No, those words are not in the 10 Commandments. So those particular words aren't in the 10 Commandments. So no, I take that back. I apologize. No, that's not the.
It's all good. I didn't know if there was something in the Hebrew that I was missing because
No. I was wrong in saying that the Shema is in the 10 Commandments, and I was even wrong about saying you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. That specific verbiage. No,
they're right in Deuteronomy 6:4 and 6:5, right next to each other. So I knew what you were saying. But yeah, a lot of Christians.
But it does say, you are to, what does it say? Now again, this is the NIV version. It says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Mitzrayim, out of the land of slavery. You should have no other gods before me. You should not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on earth beneath, and the waters below. You should not bow down to them and worship them, for Yehovah Elohim, a jealous El, or I am the Lord your God, and a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the fathers to the third or fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to thousands who love me and keep my commandments. You should not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for he will not hold anyone guiltless when he uses his name, etc., etc. But, right, when you hear, you should not make, when you hear, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You should have no other gods before me. You should not make for yourself an idol in the form of anything in heaven above, or on earth beneath, and the waters below. You should not bow down to them, worship them, for I am the Lord your God, and a jealous God, punishing the children to the third or fourth generation, from the sins of the fathers of those who hate me, but showing love to thousands, 1,000 generations who love me and keep my commandments. Right. And it says, keep my commandments. Okay. So, when it says keep my commandments, and, you have the commandment of the Shema, which is, pretty much a commandment, right? It is a commandment. It's in the law, statutes, and commandments. When you're talking about Christianity, right? If we're going to have that conversation about the 10 Commandments, I've heard a pastor like Creflo Dollar say, well, we need to get away from the 10 Commandments. Well, once you do that, what are you even doing after that? You know what I'm saying? So what has been taught to me is love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. The way you do that is that set of commandments I just laid out. And the additional one being, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for he will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name, and to remember the Shabbat day to keep it holy, et cetera, et cetera. Those first 5, there's 10 commandments, 10, right? The first 5 are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. That's how you do that. Because if you're going to ask me, well, okay, so if the 2 greatest commandments are to love the Lord thy God with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my might, well, how do I do that? Well, what's that consist of? Those are the first 5 commandments. Read those. That is pretty much tell you. Then the second one, the second commandment, are the last 5. Love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, well, how do I love my neighbor as myself? What if I don't even love myself? A lot of people don't. You know what I'm saying? How do I love my neighbor as I love myself? How do I go about doing that? Those would be the last 5 commandments. So the 2 greatest commandments are the 10 commandments. The 10 commandments are in the law of quote unquote Moses. Okay. So anytime a Christian says that we don't follow the law, you're contradicting yourself and you're denying what Jesus told you to do.
Well, what Christians mean by that most of the time is we're not under the Mosaic law covenant, we're under the law of Christ. So, but I understand what you're saying, that we are still fulfilling those, like you just said, the first 5 are loving God and the second 5 are loving your neighbor. And the only one, honestly, that ever gets any of us to be like, well, is that still binding or is that fulfilled a different way, is the Sabbath. Like, just out of, if we're just all being honest and not beating around the bush, like, nobody has a problem with not murdering. Nobody has a problem with not stealing. Nobody has a problem with any of it except how is the Sabbath fulfilled? Because we, at least myself, I've gone back and forth. I used to practice a weekly Sabbath, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown for a year or two, and then after just doing a study on Exodus 5-19, I really just said, you know what? If I'm a Christian, I got enough verses in the New Testament to show me that my true rest is in Christ. And really, when I was, air quotes, practicing the Sabbath, all I was really doing was not buying and selling. Like, I really, and not working. You know what I mean? Like, those were the only 2 things. Like, so anytime people really want to boast about, oh, I'm keeping the Sabbath. Oh, I'm keeping the Sabbath. It's really the only 2 things that I ever hear is just like, well, I'm not buying stuff, I'm not selling stuff, and I'm not working. And at the end of the day, if you really are resting in Christ and you start asking questions like, well, what if you work at a hospital? Or what if you are an ambulance driver? Or what if you're a doctor? Or what if you're you could name 100 jobs that people might need. You know what I mean? What if you work at a gas station in a small town, or you can start, or a daycare, or you can start justifying so many jobs at some points where it kind of does get to the point like we're not living in the Israelite culture that they were at the time, where this was pointing to the Messiah coming. And it was, if you look at when the Sabbath was first implemented in Exodus 16, God literally says, I'm going to send you my bread, my manna from heaven, to test you to see if you will walk in my law or not. And we already know Christ in John 6 verbatim identifies himself as that true bread from heaven. So you could go through and make a lot of arguments. I don't care if somebody practices like Sabbath, like, in the Old Testament manner. It's just something I did for a while, and then after doing some study on it, I realized that I'm more trying to boast in my works by just being like, well, I don't buy and sell and I don't work on this day. So I just started saying, screw it. I'm going to trust more so in the New Testament understanding of resting with Christ every day, and just, that's it, but I hear people's, views on it, and if it's something that gives them better faith in God and helps them serve God more, they continue to do it. I would never try to advocate somebody stop doing it if they think it's them serving God,
Now, here goes the fun conversation, Ryan. Are you ready? Are you strapped in, bro? Pause.
Sure.
Okay. So now, this is where things get interesting.
Well,
right?
Start from like where you're coming from, like on what you are you practicing a weekly Sabbath, like Friday sundown to Saturday sundown?
Because see, I identify as an Israelite, and so by identifying as an Israelite, I am required, right? These 10 commandments that are laid down are required for Israelites to keep, right? Israelites. Now, as far as what God commanded Noah, that's different, right? Because what God commanded Noah, God commanded the world, okay? But what God commanded Moses, God commanded for Israel. Now, here's the nuance and the interesting dynamic with that, okay? Now, the interesting thing is when one accepts Christ, how does one live after that, right? So what has been taught, from my understanding, is that Paul, his mission was to go to the Gentiles. First, he went to the Jews. But then after that, he was to go to the Gentiles. And this is where the whole keeping of the law becomes the, the conversation. Gentiles are not required to keep the laws, statutes, and commandments of Moses that the Most High gave Moses on Mount Sinai to give to the children of Israel. You don't have to be circumcised. You don't have to keep the Shabbat day. You don't have to do those things. That is not required of you. What is required of the Gentile is to follow the Noahide laws. We are all under grace from Yeshua. We have all been given salvation via Yeshua because Israel was lost. Their money wasn't good anymore. We always keep saying, oh, the dollar is not going to be good anymore, et cetera, et cetera. Israel's money wasn't good no more. The sacrifices, the prayers, the Shabbats, the anything they did, days of atonement, feast days, whatever, anything they did wasn't getting through to the Most High. The money was no good. They were spent. Okay, flat broke, right? They had no more. They had no more money in the bank, right? So anything they brought to the Most High didn't matter. It wasn't acceptable. Yeshua changed that. The atonement that he made, once again, made that money acceptable, put the money back into the bank. It didn't cure everything because there still had to be atonement for Israel, which is why you have Deuteronomy 28 and 68. That is atonement, okay? But we'll get there, right? So it's difficult because what the Roman Catholic Church did was they adopted the system that Israel had established as their own. They took that system and made it their own, and thereby began to call themselves New Israel, but began to, change literally the rule book. Okay, so you keep the 10 Commandments because that is a basis for sin. Period. Like the 10 Commandments is kind of a blueprint for how do we even define what sin is? Okay, well, these things define sin, right? So we know we can't do these things. But in the Noahide laws, you're not allowed to kill. You're not allowed to have any other god other than the Most High. The Noahide laws lay out the blueprint because remember, Israel doesn't come for I don't even know how many years later after the flood. Okay, so Israel is still not even in existence at all for many years. So there was still righteousness. They still have the order of Melchizedek, right? Or Melchizedek is how it's actually pronounced. They still have that order, right? Shem still has schools where righteousness is being taught. The crazy thing about it is we don't have those books. We don't have what that is. At least I haven't found it. I haven't come across it. I know people say they study the order of Melchizedek, but I don't see a book on the order of Melchizedek. I don't see that. I don't see what was being taught in the schools of Shem and what have you. I don't see none of that stuff because that would be the blueprint of what righteousness for the quote unquote Gentile is supposed to look like. That's the blueprint that should be followed. Okay. When it comes to what the Roman Catholic Church did, however, is they adopted Israel's custom and made it their own. The problem with that is they were also pagan, right? So they also adopted those other pagan systems and mixed them in there. Okay. So now what you have is Christians following Israelite foundation while saying we don't keep the laws of Israel anymore, right? So, I know in Christianity they keep the Sabbath day is Sunday, it's the 8th day, et cetera, et cetera. I honestly, where the eighth day thing comes in because Paul, something about Paul said, we're going to recognize this day for, I forget how it goes. You know the story better than me, more likely. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? There's a reason why that whole
the first fruits in 1 Corinthians 15 or something like that might be one of the arguments. That way you're like fulfilling the feast of first fruits and the Sabbath. I don't know. That's
I don't know. That's not it. It's actually a different narrative for that. But the eighth day also comes in because remember on the eighth day, that's when Israelite children are to be circumcised. You're supposed to circumcise the Israelite child on the eighth day. The eighth day represents, because 7 represents completion. The eighth day represents spiritual completion, spiritual, ascension, right? So now you have this eighth day Sabbath, right, being practiced because of what Paul said we're going to recognize this day for, and it was only for that day. It wasn't supposed to be a continual thing. And then there's the spiritual aspect of the eighth day being spiritual ascension. And so now you have, the recognition and the worship of Christ on this eighth day, right? The issue with that is that Sunday thing, that's Sol Invictus, right? So it's literally a pagan deity that is being worshipped on that day. The Jesus narrative is scary to me because if you're a Christian, right, you have a conglomerate of Mithra, Sol Invictus, Tammuz, Serapis, who else? Horus. I think there's like one more. I might be missing one, but you have all of that, and then you have the conglomeration of Enoch, Elijah, Elisha, Moses, and I think there's one more in there too. Okay. Oh, and Joshua, Yehoshua, right? Because Yeshua is Yehoshua in Aramaic. Yeshua is just Yehoshua in Aramaic. Jesus is just Yeshua in Greek. Okay, so you have those 6 biblical patriarchs, and you have those 5 or 6 pagan deities that all combine to make Jesus. When you're talking about Yeshua, all you have is those 6 biblical patriarchs that combine to make him. Now, he is supposed to be the fulfillment of all of these narratives, except for the pagan ones, of course, right? So that's that narrative in Judaism. In Judaism, he is the fulfillment of all those narratives, okay, et cetera, that you have the 2 nuances with the Moshiach ben Yosef and the Moshiach ben Dawid, which everybody lives by the way. So there's that narrative. And then when you have Jesus, you have the paganistic narrative of, the addition of that, which is why you have the, being born on December 25th narrative, et cetera, et cetera. So I can't do Jesus because of that. Yeshua, who I do believe in, is still difficult because of the conglomeration of those other biblical patriarchs to make him. So he's a perfect creation in the narrative aspect of all of these characters. And so now you can question if he's even real or not. He could simply have been, which was what a lot of people say, he was just a great prophet of his time, and he basically had the Tupac effect of his era. He was so polarizing. He was so powerful of a figure that people literally followed and worshiped him and were waiting on his return. We literally seen this with Tupac, okay? This man was so polarizing, okay? So powerful in his energy and his presence and his all of that this man died, shook up the whole world, and for years People were waiting on this man to return and literally liberate us, right? They were calling this man Christ. He has the literal same narrative, okay? So Yeshua could have been a figure like that, who the Roman Catholic Church or the early church fathers took and made him into this deified character, or he could very well be the Son of the Most High God, who he sent to be the atonement for not just Israel, but for the world. But where that gets, where we're at today with all of this is you have the Jesus narrative that has split the world in two for the most part. Well, how does a Gentile who's accepted Jesus and salvation, what is he supposed to do now, right? Well, the Roman Catholic Church gave worship system to the Gentile being basically the way Israel does it without all of the 613 laws, statutes, and commandments.
Brad, I asked you about the Sabbath, man. You're going off on like an entire
It
audio.
all matters.
Yeah.
It all matters,
on like audio.
I'm not. I know I'm in a tangent, and I apologize.
No, well,
but
I wanted
it all
you to,
matters, bro. It's
I'm
all
soaking
one.
it,
Graham.
man, but I wanted more so like, what are you doing on the Sabbath, like to consider practicing the Sabbath, like just to
Okay, so long and short, let's
selling, not
let-
working. Those were the only two things I really did. Are you refraining from doing a fire? Are you not cooking? Like just short answers. Like what are those things you're not doing on the Sabbath?
Yeah. So on the Sabbath day, we are commanded not to kindle any fire. Okay.
Yep.
We don't work. We don't buy. We don't sell. We don't do any hard physical labor. Period. Okay. Hard physical labor is not allowed. Period. You can't do it unless, and this is opinionated now because this is nuance. If you like, say like your worship area is dirty. Well, you don't want a dirty worship area. You don't want to bring the Most High's energy into this dirty space to worship Him. So you might want to clean that up. Okay. Now you can't do any hard scrubbing. You can't do any really hardcore manual labor. But do you want a clean environment for the Most High Spirit to dwell in while you're serving Him on His most precious Shabbat day? Well, yeah. So, you want to do that. Now, if you're an Ashkenazic Jew, they take it further. They say we don't do any electricity. Why? Because they liken electricity to kindling fire. And, there's a fine line with that. So I dig where they're coming from. But in the Israelite community, we don't do that because like there's no synagogues around me at all. Okay. So another thing that is part of the Sabbath is you're not supposed to travel more than 3/4 of a mile on a Sabbath day. You're not allowed to do that. Right. So if you're anywhere and it's more than 3/4 of a mile to get to where you need to go, you might as well just stay where you at. Okay, because you're not allowed to do it. That's breaking the Shabbat day. So I do my worship services the same way I'm doing this right here. I'm on my phone and on my television. Obviously, I have to turn on the TV and my phone to do that. Now, I don't take any calls. I don't have any personal, quote unquote, enjoyment on the Sabbath day. It's strictly.
Hold on. When you say you don't take calls, you're talking no personal calls, not work calls.
Unless it is where you can break the Shabbat day, and this is what you were talking about, because you're saying I'm going off on a tangent. You brought a lot of nuances in because you talk about specific jobs and things of that nature. In a perfect Israelite society, everything is shut down unless somebody's life is in danger. If your life is at risk, now a doctor has to be a doctor. Okay. And that now you have to basically break the Shabbat to save this person's life because their life is on the line. Otherwise, the hospital shut down, gas stations, all of that. No, there ain't nothing moving. Ain't nothing moving. All it is you are serving the Most High. Now, some people take the day of rest as we just ain't doing nothing. Okay. But The day of rest is just supposed to rest from physical and manual labor, and of course, business. But you are supposed to worship the Most High on the Shabbat day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I agree. I want to let James and Ramil probably ask us a question or two because they've been very patient. Guys, just out of full disclosure, I did do 12 hours right before this, and I am kind of crashing. So I'll go to like 3 hours here, guys. I got another 34 minutes. So, and then God willing, we can do it any other time. You guys are all welcome to come back, obviously. So go ahead, whoever wants to ask a question or make a comment, go ahead, James or Ramil.
I'll let Ramil go ahead and go first. I'm willing to start a stream in a different space. If somebody wants to come over there after this, I'm up for it. Let me know.
I'll be honest, bro. I have lost the day again coming on to Ryan Apologetics channel. It's like a magnet for messing your day up. You know what I'm saying? So I have to do something with the rest of this day, or I've lost it, and I can't do that. But I am all ears for whatever you guys have.
As for me, just gonna go ahead and preface this. This is like the first time that I've ever been over here visiting and hanging out. I've been subscribed to Ryan Apologetic for off and on a little while now. I've only been able to occasionally stop in and just kind of see what the vibe was like. I was looking for channels to discuss topics of of this nature. So tiny bit of backstory. I'm not going to go into the long spiel of everything, but I identify as a Christian. However, I also preface this with saying that I'm very, very bad at it. So I would go ahead and like to throw that forward and just this is the best that I can do with the way that life has gone on. Had a couple of very traumatic things, including a near-death experience. So there is that. But with all of that being said, my question comes around how God is going to treat everybody and the morals that have to go into the understanding of why hell is a place in the first place. And I know that this is an endlessly moral argument, and I've spent the majority of my life studying the religions of the world and scriptures for funsies, but only up until I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago did I even attempt to make the strive to really try to understand Christ and the mindset of loving your neighbor as much as as you would love yourself, and treat everybody in such a fashion. So I have a really hard time of wrapping my mind around a God that would be willing to give creatures free will, who is supposed to be the eternal, the beginning and the end, know every single thing about us, and still let people be born into this world knowing exactly who is and who is not going to hell, and how that is supposed to be just. I have a really hard time of imagining a God that can say with one hand, I love you and I'll offer you a way out because of two people who decided to make as many possible mistakes along the way, including the biggest one, which led to the fall of humanity, and all of their descendants being cursed with the gift of life. And it becomes an amazingly problematic thing when, with the other hand, there's the presentation of the quote unquote choice, which is either serve me and go with my son, go with Jesus, or you burn in hell for eternity, or for the 1,000 years, and then you are thrown into the lake of fire and you are gone and nothing. There is something very wrong with the very concept of there being a place that God allows there to be, because I understand that there's a whole concept of whether God created the lake of fire and all of that. I have a problem with the ethics behind it. Why would you not find a way to burn away the sins of the soul of that person, unless they continuously, even while they were, let's say we take the example of the second coming, okay? And then, the goats and sheep, they are separated, and those that did take the mark, or those that did not choose Jesus Christ, they end up dying, and then they end up going to hell. and an eternal punishment for something that is so finite, such as stupid little creatures that humans are, having the capacity to learn and do as much as everything as right as you can, and being saved only by the concept of faith, which can be so easily shattered in a world with as bad as things are right now. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around the justification for such a thing, which is why I personally do not have a close relationship with God right now, because it has become far more taxing to try to answer questions like this from other people and not be able to have any good logic behind it. And it makes me not only feel disarmed, but it also makes me feel like I have to question, well, God, because some of it doesn't seem to match up with the ideal of what I thought his character was. And the more that I've learned, the more that it's starting to look like God is a moral monster. And I do not like thinking that, because it's not a question of faith whether God exists to me or not, or whether Jesus Christ was the Son of God or not. I know that for me, that's more than enough. Like, I don't need to see anything else. The problem is everything else around it that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. I can't wrap my mind around the love and then the merciful justice of eternal punishment. It's it's been eating at me ever since my near death experience. So, and that's been a
Well,
couple of years now.
everything you said's fair. Everything you said's a thought that I think everybody's had. At least anybody that's seriously looked into Christian walk, and anybody that speaks with certainty about any aspect of hell is a liar, because they're just making something up that they can't prove, and they have no firsthand evidence that they can say, yeah, hell is going to be this long, or the fire is going to be this temperature, or there is a fire, or there isn't a fire. Like, there's elements of it that can clearly be symbolic. Clearly, they could also be interpreted literal. The fire being one of them. You know what I mean? Like, I see Christ saying, outer, people are out in outer darkness, weeping and gnashing of teeth. The Old Testament has more of a Sheol concept. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
there's lots of different things that we have to be careful with, like the verses where Christ, speaks about, it's better to cut off your hand. Obviously, that's metaphor too. He doesn't want you to actually cut off your head or pluck out your eye. For me, what I'd say is my limited experience of actual supernatural evil or good, closeness to God or evil. I know that the closest thing I've lived to hell, which I've lived very close things to hell, is separation from God and being around the devil and whatever the other side is. And it's not a peaceful time. And I haven't been in flames burning in fire, but I know I'm in constant uncertainty. I'm in constant torment. It seems like that side is not peaceful at all. And the entire side over there isn't trying to seek peace, and I don't understand the exact motivation behind it, but I know that I'm not trying to just demonize everybody that may have failed either, because I'm not God, and I belong over there with evil because I've done evil myself. So I'm trying to repent and just serve God with all my heart, soul, and mind. But yeah, it can be overwhelming to try to go through these things. Like you said, I think a lot of people not create, but they'll land on the certain doctrine that they believe as their faith as far as free will or determinism, based on it'll make it easier for them. So for me, I'm a free will person, and I think a free will person gives themselves an even harder battle, because I think what the determinists do as like a cop out almost with this fear that you described is they say, well, everything's determined, but I know I'm chosen from God, so I know I'm one of the ones that isn't going to hell. So they
It's pride.
basically, they give themselves almost a cognitive dissonance, to the point of like, oh, I'm immune to hell now because of determinism and God chose me. So the
Hmm.
free will person kind of puts a burden on themselves that the determinist doesn't. So I'm a free will person. So I equally share your emotions, and none of them are insane. What I will say is, like, the biggest error and the biggest lie that you could fall for is to to go to the rabbit hole where you went, where you're like, well, is God a moral monster or whatever? Like that's a line that the devil wants you to go over, bro. So, you just have to like what I've learned in my life is like accept death. I mean, I almost died a few times, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I broke my neck in a car accident. I was dying in the car. I had a fever, 170 degrees. I had some other incidents. So, you know what I mean? Like what
Your
I've learned.
situation sounds just as fun as mine was. Wow.
Oh yeah, oh
Jesus.
yeah, yeah. I
Sorry to
mean,
hear that.
nah, it's all good. I crashed my car on the highway, so that kind of happens, when you fall asleep on the highway, it doesn't end very well. But yeah, no, what I can say is the best way I deal with it, man, is to fellowship with other people, try to stay in my scriptures, realize that God doesn't hurt innocent people that are striving towards him, and trust in his mercy and love, and also realize that all you can do is have faith, and that's it. You can't control certain things, but I don't think, there's different versions of Christianity. Obviously, there's universalists that will deal with it by saying everybody's going to be saved eventually. Nobody's going to go to hell. I don't believe that. I think that's perverting what God's message is in the scriptures, or just what, God's justice is. It's like making a mockery of God's justice or righteousness.
Well, I could understand if somebody was truly, I mean, deep down, malicious, cruel. Those are some of the key factors of that. When I look at people, whenever I'm thinking, what if, like, it's not a question to me whether, whether Stalin or Hitler's going to hell. Like, it's not really much of a question to me in my mind. But then I look at, people who are even just a slight bit younger than I am. I'm getting ready to turn 34 in a couple of days. So, but I look at people who are younger than me who are getting just barraged by all sorts of darkness and temptation, and the way that the world is absolutely spinning out of control. I see it, and I see that, like, some of these people that are a little bit younger, they don't have a chance. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep my language kinder and a little bit gentler. I'm used to having a bit of a mouth, so. But I don't know. It's just it leaves me in a really uncomfortable position of, I have my own experience with death, and I don't have a problem whenever it comes to the belief of God or of Jesus Christ. I've seen way more than enough to satisfy me, and normally I'm really, really picky about things like that. I've seen more than enough, and I've experienced more than enough. It's once those questions started creeping in, that doubt is when, I guess, what the Catholics would call the long night of the soul, or the dark night of the soul, start to creep in, because it starts pushing on not only your faith, but you as a person at your core, because that's how seriously that I take it. I listen to people in my local communities talk all sorts of stuff, they show up to church every single Sunday, and then they go home later on and they absolutely party and drink, and they just completely get, they just go off the rails, and they show up for church, being hypocritical and, so on. And I always wondered why I never ended up fitting into so many of these different church circles. And it made me feel like I was always kind of the outsider. So whenever I would have other Christian peers, like, kind of dog me because I'm asking questions simply about the concept of hell being a literal state of being, that God gives you a finite amount of time to figure it out, with everything else basically and seemingly being stacked against you. Like, it's definitely felt like that for me over the course of my life. And then trying to hold onto your faith while having all of these difficult and disturbing questions, if I can even say that. I don't know. I'm just been at a really, really difficult place in my life, especially over the last year. It's just put me into a position where I've asked a lot more questions, and I've been getting either dissatisfactory answers, or I've been kind of dogged for doing it and treated ill because of it.
Oh.
It's a very because I am trying. That's the thing, is that I am trying. I spend all my free time basically just pondering these questions and going and researching and trying to learn. And the more questions that I get answered, the more questions that I have afterward. You know, it's that saying, the more you know how much you don't know, you know? Like, it's something like
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Yeah.
No, listen, man. Everything is reasonable what you've said so far, and I can empathize with it all. I can agree that I've had all the same thoughts. And listen, nobody mathematically wants to say, well, what I did in this little lifetime that I had on Earth, 0 to 100 years maximum, basically. I want it to have, affect me for the next trillion years or for infinity. Like, we can't even fathom what infinity is. Like, nobody wants to say, well, what I did for 40 years, 70 years, 100 years should either give me the greatest eternity possible or the worst eternity possible, because you got to be the sickest degenerate gambler ever to gamble your soul in that manner. You know what I mean? Nobody would sign up for that wager. And I'm sure there's a philosopher, if I wanted to sound really extra smarter or scholarly, I could say a famous name wager or something. I don't know what Pascal's
Pascal's
wager,
wager.
for some reason, I that came into my brain, but it might have nothing to do with anything I'm saying, so I shouldn't even have mentioned Pascal. Because all I'm saying is, it seems like an insane gambler for any of us who are actually even gamblers remotely. And I've gambled, you know what I mean? I've done my share of poker and betting on sports or whatever, and it's like,
Hmm.
yeah. If you asked me if I wanted to be in a thing where my soul either burned forever or was perfect forever, I'd kind of say, like, can I get a medium option? Can I have a little less extreme option? So I think, just out of that understanding, that the truth has to be closer to the middle ground and not as extreme. But I will say that just the peace you have when you're with God is the closest I can get to heaven and what I've experienced from heaven. And then I know, like I said, the separation from God is the epitome of
Torment.
hell. Yeah, torment, because there's no peace on the other side, man. I mean, unfortunately, evil is a real thing. The more you learn, like you said, the more you understand there are two sides to life. But the thing is, like, we can't go through the Bible and try to nitpick and make God something he isn't either. If you look at the story of the Bible, the New Testament is the ending of the movie, the ending of the book. And in that, we have a God willing to sacrifice himself, die on the cross, bear our sins in order to give us a merciful way to his eternal bliss. So, if you accept that aspect, it really should, take a weight off of all of our shoulders. It's easier said than done, and I'd be lying if it says it just is off of my mind, because I'm a sinner myself, and you don't know what sins are worse than others, and you don't know what's forgivable or not, and everything's forgivable through mercy and God. But it all just gets exhausting, like I said, and everybody should be able to relate to what you're saying, but you got to go through Christ in your faith, man, and just accept, that God's the good news. The gospel's the good news, and that's the only solace I can offer. I can say God is a good God. From what God has shown me, it's beyond merciful in situations I didn't deserve mercy in. And if you trust in the other side, it's not going to end well. We already know that's not going to end well. So I don't know how bad it will end, but it won't end well.
James, Bran, would either of you guys like to jump into this as well?
Well, if I understand correctly, Ryan's wanting to close this out soon. It's 3:40 here. I don't know what time it is there.
Oh yeah,
So-
it's 3:40, but I've been up all night, so that's why
Right.
you guys witnessed. I mean, I'm not making it up. You saw I did 12 hours before this, so
Oh yeah.
I got another 15 minutes or so. Then I'll have to, God willing, do it another day. You guys are always welcome. I pin the link every show, so.
Sure, like I said, my channel space is always an option, but I don't want to snipe an audience, right? It's just
Oh,
out
that's
there
fine.
if you want to.
Yeah. No, I saw you put it in the chat, right? I'll subscribe. I mean, we're all YouTubers, so we know how it is. You know what I mean? Every subscriber is nice to get. Nobody gets mad at having one more subscriber, or,
Right.
But yeah, you're gonna continue open stream like this on your channel.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think that it's a big and important topic. I don't think we can do it justice with the 14-minute window we've got left.
No, that's fine. But I mean, honestly, I see you're kind of underneath your name, kind of putting, a little bit of your mod on Myth Vision. So, I've watched Myth Vision. I'm sure most people in my audience have watched Myth Vision.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that seems to be the side that I'm trying to avoid in what I'm saying, as far as like, giving up on God, or even worse, rebellion against God. Like, so is that kind of where you're at, James? Just out of curiosity, because
So how can I put this? I appreciate the purpose of the parameters of this stream. Your virtual space. You're a Christian. Other people are kind of in a similar kind of a space. I don't want to be the guy that comes in here to derail that, or take away from that, or negate that, right? That I'm just coming into this space and similar spaces to have a mutual understanding. That's it. I don't seek to deconvert anyone or turn anybody to atheism, right? I don't want to negate or invalidate anybody's spiritual journey. I happen to be pro spirituality. I'm just not specifically a theist, but I'm not, I don't know what's best for anybody other than me, right? So I don't come into these spaces trying to like topple anybody's worldview. I just come into these spaces so that I can understand others better, and so that in trade I can help them understand me better, and people can do whatever they want with that.
yeah, that's an interesting way of going about it. You don't want to impose on other people what you already know they're going to reject, and that's why I try to allow everybody to have their own voice over here too, because I know I can't just say, hey, believe in Jesus, and everybody's going to do it. All I can do is testify to the truths that I've lived on my life, and what the scriptures can aid us all, and if we accept certain texts as authoritative or not, if we can find mutual understanding there. So I'd be interested in hearing more from your story. Obviously, I'm sorry I'm not, you guys didn't get as much airtime. I know you were on earlier, but it's kind of hard sometimes when people are already going in battles back and forth on certain topics, and there's more than 5 people on the show. We get some panels where it's full and everybody's fighting to get a word in edgewise. So
Right.
but yeah, when you say deconstructed, that obviously means you were a Christian. Can I always I just quickly, I mean, I know, like I said, I mean, I can go a little 5-10 minutes over too. It's not like I'm on a strict, I gotta end this like Die Hard, a bomb's gonna go off right now, but you know what I mean? So just to ask, like, when I've heard people say they've deconstructed before, it always kind of confuses me where they say, like, oh, I was a Christian, but when they talk about it, they'll also simultaneously share that, well, God never answered one prayer, or I never felt God's Holy Spirit, or they went their whole life and called themselves a Christian for 20 years, but they never seemed to have that one moment where they really were certain God existed. Can you tell me or anybody else, Ramil, Ron, anybody listening, like, when you say you used to be a Christian, did you ever have one sincere, genuine moment where you were positive God existed?
Well, I will say it like this. It wasn't until age 41, and I'm in my early 50s now, so it's been over a decade ago, that I lost my faith in the idea of God. Until then, throughout my life, I'd always just taken it as a given. I didn't question it. I didn't doubt it. I scoffed at anybody that did doubt it, right? I was resolute. I was resolute in a calm sort of way, not in a defensive way, not in an offensive way. It just was like, of course God exists, right? And then I would just build the rest of my worldview around this idea. And it wasn't until age 41 that I watched some skeptical content on the YouTube that I realized that I'd been lied to by fundamentalists, which, to be fair, religious fundamentalism does not represent all of Christianity or everybody's Christianity, right? So fundamentalists could be wrong on a point, and some less fundamentalist or non-fundamentalist idea could still be correct about God, right? I understand that these are separate ideas. But once I began to realize that my fundamentalist mother in her church had been lying to me, it kind of like is a dam bursting, and that I suddenly gave myself permission to go back over my entire history of ideas and experiences and question everything, including authority itself. Because if I could be lied to about one particular set of ideas, what else was I lied to about?
Mhm.
And this began a larger process for me.
You know what I hate about these conversations
What?
is that once a seed is planted, a tree can grow and expand into a forest, and you just don't have time to cultivate it all.
Yeah.
Okay. In your experience, Mr. Apperson, you had a traumatic experience that made you question first the people who gave you comfortability in God, and then ultimately God Himself. As you said, if I could be lied to here, where else am I being lied to? If there's deception on this plate, then on the dessert, well, there's obviously got to be deception here. You know what? Take the whole meal and shove it. Okay. And you lose God and God loses you. Well, He doesn't lose you, but He, for the most part, does, because what you could or should be for Him, you're not going to be, because you now reject Him. Everybody has this experience when it comes to God. Everybody. If you believe in God, you will be tested and questioned about it. It is an absolute, unequivocal, unquestionable, undeniable fact. Many, 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 and many more people go astray. I've done it. Many people have done it. Okay. Some people stay that way. Some people find their way back. Okay. I would even venture to say more people stay that way. Some people find their way back. But it's always a traumatic test. It's the Job experience. We all have it. Everybody's experience is different. Some more extremes than others, some less extreme than others. But everybody has their Job moment in life where God allows you to experience hell, but He keeps you alive. And that's the moment where you say, okay, am I rocking with this God or not? Because just like Remiel said, who is this God? What's this God all about? Like, this isn't good. And I don't rock with this. My spirit, my energy, my conscience, my mind, front, back, and center don't agree with none of this. So since I, as a person, a human being, don't agree with this, well, why the heck should I agree with the God who's putting it in my life? Because I ain't feeling this. And it's wrong, essentially. And since it's wrong, the source is wrong. And if God is the source, well, He's wrong. And the thing we hate most about it is nobody can go knock on God's door and say, hey, God, did you come here for a minute? I got a couple of questions for you. And then ask those questions and get those answers. We have to go through all these different sources of faith and then hope to God that these sources of faith are either leading us in the right direction. Okay. What I will say to both Remiel and James. Okay. One, Remiel, as far as hell being an eternal damnation, that is a Christian theology. In Judaism, hell is not taught to be an eternal damnation. Hell, unfortunately, exists, but it is a source of purification. It is likened to a metals factory or a steel factory. You take raw ore, right? Raw ore. And this happens in life. This is the James experience. This is my experience, the Ryan experience, the Remiel experience, everybody's experience, the Job experience. You take raw ore and you put it in a furnace and you purify it. The thing about it is that furnace is hell, fam. Inside of that furnace, nothing good is happening, but everything good is happening. Why? because you're being purified. The wickedness or the all the bad in you is being purified, so that when you're being poured out on the other end into a mold, which you can now be used for whatever your purpose is. Because once you are that new metal poured out on the other side of that furnace into that mold, you can now be used to whatever your purpose is. You're going to build a building or be a car or whatever. Okay. You will now be used for something relevant. Okay. It's the same thing with the spirit. If you are a wicked person in your life, when you die, you will receive judgment. In Judaism, they believe in reincarnation. You're either going to be reincarnated into another person or what have you, or you literally have the option to choose Gehinnom or hell. Say you don't want to be reincarnated. You don't want to come back to this world. You've had enough of it. You ain't doing it no more. You have an option to literally go into hell to purify your soul. But it is hell. Now, this is the thing in Judaic teaching. Hell is actually only supposed to last for 1 year. And then you get the Shabbat off. So out of 365 days, that's 52 days that you don't have to be in hell or suffer hell. So that's what, 300 and I think that's what, 13 days? If my math is off, I apologize. So that's 300 and some odd days that you actually have to experience hell. However, it's also taught that 1 day in hell is as 1,000 years. So now you got to take that 300 and some odd days, multiply it by 1,000. Okay, so it's about 313 some odd thousand years that it's going to feel like you're in hell. I don't think your average person wants to deal with that. So people obviously tend to choose reincarnation. None of us have died and come back and tell the tale, but in Judaic teaching, that is a teaching. So it's not eternal, but it damn sure feels that way. You feel what I'm saying? But it's not forever.
So,
okay.
Ryan, you've got some scriptures here highlighted. Did you want to share these relevant to the discussion?
Well, I was just, everybody's familiar with the prodigal son. So I just have these highlighted so everybody can have the reminder of God's character. So when you see the prodigal son coming back, returning to God, realizing, he squandered his wages and return to his father's home, God not only meets him, but runs to him and puts on the ring on his finger, vest, robe, shoes on his feet, kills the calf, and says, my son was dead and is alive. So it just came to mind when either you were, I think it was when you were speaking, your story may have, just the way you worded something, I may have thought about that scripture, but that usually happens. Ron, can you mute your mic? Are you like going to work while you're?
No, I'm in front of the fan, so that's what you do.
Oh, my bad.
Oh,
All
is that what that is? All right.
Yeah, you got a little background noise. That's all good. Just
All right.
unmute yourself whenever you're going to talk again. But
So real quick, I don't think I was correctly understood. I understood everything I was being told, and I appreciate the feedback.
yeah,
But I don't think that my explanation of my deconstruction is correctly understood, and that's fine because I just didn't finish articulating the idea. As I understand it, the word God, it's not a type of entity; it's a relationship paradigm. So for example, if you're walking through a forest and you see a big rock there, it's just a rock until you decide to sit on it. And then it becomes a chair because now you have this new relationship to the rock. The same thing applies to any concepts that we treat as concrete. The word God represents a certain way of feeling or relating to a concept. And so, for example, let's say hypothetically someone were to convince me that there absolutely must have been an intelligent prime mover, first cause agent, a willful, intelligent designer of the cosmos and the world. Let's just say they've convinced me of this. Well, they might assume that now I'm a theist, capital T, because I accept the idea of a creator being. But they would be incorrect. It doesn't become God to me in this relationship paradigm until I have a reverent awe that I submit myself to, relating to the concept itself. Until that, it's not a God to me. It's just a creator being to me. It's an important distinction to make. There are some people who use the word God to talk about nature or to talk about physics or to talk about the cosmos, right? To them, that's God, even though it's not a person with a will, because what they're really talking about is the reverent awe that they feel and subject themselves to, because it makes them feel not just small, but small in a good way, because it contextualizes them in such a way that they stand at the feet of something looking up in awe at the majesty, at the grandeur, at the epic, mind-blowing proportions of this thing that they're part of, that's relevant to their existence and their journey. It is that sense of awe that makes it God to them. And the problem for me is that I don't feel the awe, right? And so when I think about the idea of a creator being that just maybe created us, I'm like, maybe. I'm open to the idea. I'm not against it. I'm agnostic when it comes to this point. But when I look around the world, I feel a whole lot like Remiel does. I hope I'm saying your name right. And that I'm not that impressed with what I'm seeing and feeling and experiencing, right? It seems like if this world was intelligently designed and purposed for the way that things have unfolded, I feel so jaded and cynical about what I'm seeing that it negates the awe that I would otherwise feel about the concept of a creator being. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes.
nothing.
And also, just to point out, both you and Ryan, both of you are the only two people in the YouTube streets that out the gate have gotten my name pronounced correctly. So cheers to both of you.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, no, I don't think anything you said there is incorrect as far as logic is concerned. But that's kind of what I was asking initially, where I was trying to search for, did you ever have just one, like not dozens, not hundreds, just one pure moment that you could say that was a unavoidable, definitive experience with God, the Christian God, or whatever you wanted to just say, God in general, but I mean more specifically, Jesus the Father or the Holy Spirit. If you could have one moment in your life that you look at, did you ever have that? Because everybody I've ever heard deconstruct, whenever they say I was a Christian for so many years, I rarely hear them say they even had that one moment.
Yeah, I don't know that I ever experienced a moment of eureka or epiphany that was this transitional moment of aha, right? I don't know that I ever felt that on an emotional level. Instead, I just contextualized all my experiences within the context of a cultural narrative that I'd been given by my parents, right? And so I saw everything through this lens or through this narrative because that's how I was raised to see it all through. And so, I never had that thing that you're describing.
Yeah, see that makes what you're calling deconstruction seem like it's not really a deconstruction, but it's more like you still have yet to find it. It's like you've never been in love. You can't say, well, I got my heart broke. Well, you didn't really get your heart broke because you were never in love. It's like you're more so still searching for that love is where the way I would put it. But I understand what you're saying. If you identified as a believer in something because of your culture, your society, what felt like, logical, whatever. Like, I'm not knocking you as like disingenuous in what logically, had yourself at. Like, all I'm saying is that for me, I had an entirely different trajectory. So I was not a Christian for 36 years. And then I believed in God always, but I was just a wretched, sinner and didn't live in any sort of godly manner. I'd never gone to church, never read a Bible for most of my life. And even after I broke my neck, I was praying to dead relatives and stuff as I was dying. I wasn't praying to the Christian God. So I had all these, similar, just ideas of God, I guess. But even in that, I still felt like in the back of my mind, if I killed somebody or did something like really horrendous, I was like, I do believe in a God where I'm going to get judged for these things. So I had somewhat what you had, where I wasn't really able to really definitively ever say, well, this one moment, but I just kind of had a reverent fear in the back of my mind of God. But I have since had nothing but, supernatural experiences with good and evil. So it's not a question if God is real for me. So my trajectory is just very different than yours and a lot of people's. Obviously, I don't expect people to have lived supernatural evil or good, but I've lived both. And now that I know God is real, for me, it's like it's not really even a question I could even ask myself. I'd just be a
Oh
liar
yeah.
and deny it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Sherry Hatfield over in the comments says, I felt God's awe when I was 7 and I could never forget.
I want to say hello, Truth Speaker, and I suppose that once again I'm the oddball out on this one because throughout my life I've gone through several different, the roller coaster hoops, or the dips and the valleys and the climbing of the hills. I when I was younger, I went to a small Seventh-day Adventist school where they were very strict on the way that like you were being taught like the fundamentals of the Bible. And then during my teenage years, I did a bunch of research on religions of the world while being essentially an agnostic atheist. Um, and then during my 20s, I kind of had a gentle balance between trying to figure out where my place was in the world. But it wasn't until I was about 28. I was laying in my room minding my own business. I was just contemplating like how I was supposed to be able to kind of work through like my financial situation that I was kind of focusing on because of I was having a shift in jobs. And then after a little while, I sat back and I was really quiet and I was just listening to music. I was minding my own business. And the only way that I can describe this was it felt like the whole entire room had been filled with what I can only describe as a warm golden light, unprompted, not triggered by anything in any sort of way. It's such a silly little thing to describe it as a miracle, but that is as simple and everyday as it was. I was literally just laying there and I knew who it was the moment that the Lord's presence filled the room. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt in my very bones. I knew exactly who that was. I've never had a question about it since then about his existence. My stumbling blocks have always been with I'm trying to understand the logic behind some of the things that are listed out in the Bible based upon God's character, as I have come to understand him as not only a father, not only a protector and a provider, but also the person who is supposed to be responsible for judgment and mercy and came to die for everybody here based upon his rules. I'm trying to wrap my mind around why you have to sacrifice yourself for the sake of other people in order to free us when he's the one who's in control of the rules. He's the one who writes the very reality that's around us.
Right.
So my stumbling blocks have always been trying to understand the the weird, seemingly. How would I even word this? It almost feels like in a certain sort of way. Whenever I have some of these conversations with Christians about like the for example, the ideals of hell, the big thing that keeps coming up is that it's their choice. And Ryan, you had already mentioned about determinism and about the concepts of free will, and that's another one of those stumbling blocks for me is trying to figure out, do I actually have the free will to make these choices for myself? If so, God couldn't know them unless he really like made me. But if he knew me and he knows every hair on the top of my head, he knows every mistake that I'm going to make, the words that come out of my mouth before I utter them, who knew me before I was in my mother's womb. How does he not know if I'm going to be a failure? How does he not does he not know me that well? Like,
These are all fair questions. Here's the thing. There's a couple of different Christian theories about this. One is that God knows literally everything, even in advance, because he's outside of space and time and he sees the whole spectrum of time. Another is that God only knows that which can be known. And if you actually have free will, then your decisions haven't been made yet. So he can't know what you're going to do because it's up in the air and he's leaving that up in the air. Right. And so these are these two different ideas about what it means for God to know everything. Does it mean literally everything or only all that can be known? And so different people have wrestled with these ideas and try to make sense of what you're saying. Now, I don't happen to believe in libertarian free will. Libertarian free will is the idea that no matter what you've ever done, you could have done something different as an expression of an absolute freedom of will. I don't think that's even a coherent concept, let alone logistically possible.
Yeah, I was sitting here trying to wrap my mind around it. I was like, wait, how does that work? Like,
It's not possible, because if you have at any given moment you have this experience of making a quote unquote decision. You're at a crossroads. You have vanilla or chocolate ice cream, just for example. We don't have to make this a moral issue right now. In that moment, if you have absolutely no antecedent cause, like the cause that comes before it, like a necessitating determining factor about which flavor you're going to choose, well, then the culmination of your choice is random. And randomness, by definition, can't be an expression of your freedom of will. Whereas if you had an antecedent cause, a determining factor in what you were going to end up choosing, chocolate or vanilla, that's deterministic, which is the opposite of random. And again, it can't be described as an expression of freedom of will. And you can dial the determinism dial up and down, the randomness dial up and down in this hypothetical universe model, and it doesn't change the fact that in no conceivable universe does anybody have libertarian free will. It's not a coherent concept. It's not even possible to have. Now, I've made peace with this and then had to work through what the moral implications of that idea might be. Now, I'm not here to start a brand new discussion or debate about free will. It's a whole other Pandora's box. But when I think about it in the context of all these religious issues, I recognize, here's the thing. It's not supposed to be possible for me to outshine God, right? If he's the epitome of love and mercy and all this other stuff and virtue, I'm not supposed to be able to outshine him even in a moment. And yet I've had people go out of their way to do some of the most evil shit crap to my life, to my journey. And yet I do not want them to suffer some kind of an eternal damnation for it. What I want is for them to be healed and made whole. What I want is them to be introduced to clarity of thought, to understand their journey and mind as they converge, to understand what really happened and why. Because if you clear up somebody's headspace, or they're not confused about their own feelings or mine, they're not confused about what they did and why, or mine, right? Then everything comes into clarity. Now all you've got to do is give them a conscience. All this combines, and now you're talking about a healed, whole person that would never again do the things that they did. This is what I want. Now, I'm not a god. I don't have that kind of power. But that's what I want for everybody that's ever done me wrong. So when you compare that, what I want for my enemies, to what a lot of religious people say God wants to do to his enemies, I'm easily outshining God now in every virtue. And this, to me, is the divergence of ideas and views and values that makes how I've made sense of myself in the world incompatible with how biblical religionists have made sense of the world.
Yeah, I mean, we've been beating free will and determinism to death the last not today's show, but the last prior few shows. So I'm kind of worn out. And like you said, it is a long topic. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely not going to get into the specifics of what you said there. I do disagree because I lean more towards free will. And I know all prophecy is determined. So I understand what you're saying about, like, I'd agree with what you said, that total libertarian free will isn't a biblical concept, because anything that's God's will that is predetermined in itself, if it interacts with your will, which we all, if we're believers, have walked with God's will at some point, has, swayed our will to God's will, which would take away our libertarian free will to at least a percentage or two. So I agree there's no such thing as libertarian free will exclusively, but I didn't I mean, we'd have to sort through everything, and it all depend on how you define certain terms. Like when you say no such thing as random, like that, I didn't really jive with. Like, I mean, if you throw a basketball up at the hoop, is it like you're not really in control of like what direction the ball goes, and is God, always determining the exact trajectory of every basketball shot you take? Is he really making sure you shoot it the certain way, or certain shots in your free will control on how you decide to shoot the ball? Like, we do have to sort through all these things. I mean, Jesus lived as a perfect servant, and he was obedient. He prayed in Gethsemane, not my will, but your will be done. The Lord's Prayer, we pray not for our will, but for God's will. So going by what Christ taught just in the Lord's Prayer, his own life in Gethsemane, I think there are arguments for, free will and also God's will. And, it's just such a long topic. I understand when people are just hard determinists and they want to say, go down the rabbit holes and just be like, well, if God knows, how did he know? Like you already mentioned, is he outside of time, or is he forcing the event so he knows? I lean towards multiple universes, like in a mathematical sense, multiple outcomes. Universes is kind of just a crude way of saying it, but it's also like the easiest way to try to give people an idea of what I believe. So I use it. But just in mathematics, like if we're not using certain geometry, and I'm not a mathematician, but infinity is a concept. There's even counted infinity and uncountable infinity. So it's like our minds can't really fathom all the ways that God is able to account for if we have free will decisions, and if certain things are determined along those same journeys or not. So I'm open to everybody's opinion on all those things, but they are long discussions too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
Right.
they can go deep. But guys, you guys both sound very coherent. Nobody said anything crazy. I wish everybody has that moment of peace. It sounds like, Ramil, you did share a moment where you unmistakably knew it was God, and that's awesome, man. That's a blessing, and it also is an indicator of asking and you will receive too, because you have to seek. Like God does answer. He's not going to answer all the time in the ways we want. It's not always going to be lightning striking out of the sky or the Goodyear blimp coming by and making it very obvious to us, but it can be something very subtle. But if your heart is open to subtle signs and you continually seek God, I know he will find you or answer you, because he's done it for me, and I'm nobody special, and he's done it for many others, and just Jesus himself telling us he will fulfill that. So prayer is important. We all need to do more of that. We all need to have open minds, open hearts. So I'll let everybody give a last word, and then I'm just going to close it down. So if you guys want to transfer over to James' channel, feel free. I'll show your channel, so everybody that's interested, because are you going to do StreamYard, James, or what? Do you use something similar, Restream or something? What do you use?
Yeah, I use StreamYard until I run out of minutes. So
okay, so you're not going to do a stream after this?
It's up to you guys. If somebody wants to go over to that space and continue the discussion, I'll host it. It's up to you.
Okay.
I would really like to continue this discussion. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go and deal with a cranky girlfriend here in a second. So, so y'all can pray for me about that one. So
we will always pray for a cranky girlfriend resolution. But yeah, guys, everybody who came on is always welcome to come back on this channel, God willing, in the future. Like I said, I pin the link every show. So go ahead and close out. I'm done speaking, so everybody else, go ahead, close out, whatever order you guys want. Just chime in. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, Ryan, thanks for letting me come up here and talk with you, cool cats. Like this was very, very nice. A little bit earlier, it was kind of chaotic, and I didn't want to overlap into too much of exactly what they were talking about, but I greatly appreciate you letting me come up here and ask some questions and get involved in the conversation, and I hope to do it again. Yeah, this was very nice, and thank all of you people in the chat. So cheers.
Yeah, feel the same.
Anytime. And yeah, so there's always whatever it is, ebbs and flows, whatever, ups and downs, whatever you want to call it, waves. On these panels, sometimes it's calm, sometimes it's hectic. It's got to just find your moments sometimes, and we all can kind of read the room sometimes when it's it's a conversation we want to be in, or if the conversation's gone left. And I'm sure you guys heard me earlier. I wasn't always talking this calm earlier. So it all depends on who you're interacting with, the temperature, the audience, and so we all have our moments too, and we move past things. If we have disagreements, we forget, move forward, be adults about it, and continue to build. But yeah, God bless.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, another good thievery of my day. You know what I'm saying? I've actually seen you doing these open panels for several days now, and I've been avoiding them for this very reason, because I already know once I come on, it's gonna be next Thursday. Okay. But these are great panels, great discussions. I have to admit, that's the only reason why everybody's on here for so long, because they are really good and reasonable discussions. Unfortunately, they're never ending, because these discussions are about theism, and when you're diving into that pool, the waters only just continue to get deeper, deeper, and deeper, and deeper, and deeper, and you find that the pool never actually ends. What I will say to everybody, one, I appreciate your time, I appreciate your ears, I appreciate your voices, appreciate all your opinions and your points of view and what have you. I believe that we've all been in the same space to one degree or another. Well, I can't say the same space, because the brother said he's never felt the awe of the Most High, and that's fair. It's understandable. I will say in Jewish mysticism, it's taught that the reason for creation, because I don't think any human being has a relevant answer for that, but the reason for creation is for the Most High to share his ineffable essence, period. Just to share his essence with, and you can add whatever to with, okay? But of course, obviously, we are a major, major part of that, right? And so in sharing his essence, what ended up happening was, instead of just to receive the Most High's essence, there wanted to be a system of reciprocity, right? Give and take. Okay. Now, this system of reciprocity created existence as we know it. The hard thing about this existence as we know it is it has a lot of problems in it. Too many, most would say, right? And these problems that exist in this existence, obviously create a major question of why. Okay. Most people find their solace in, it just is what it is. I'm here. I'm going to make the most out of my time while I'm here. I'm going to get the most that I can. And then when my time is done, it's done. Some people say, I'm here. This sucks. I'm just going to crash out until I ain't here no more, and whatever. And then other people seek to find God in whatever avenue they seek to find it. Okay. Or spirituality in whatever avenue they seek to find it. Right. The Most High wants us to connect with him. Okay. However, the difficult thing about this system of reciprocity is he created this system with difficulty. And so because it's created with difficulty, you have to navigate through, pick through, and survive that difficulty. Some things are quote unquote random acts, car accidents, random shooters in a Walmart, whatever. Okay. And then other things are just life's difficulties. The goal of creation is to navigate your way through all of that difficulty, should you be fortunate enough to survive it, and find your way to the Most High and then connect with him. Is that going to happen for everybody? Unfortunately not. But for those who it does happen for, all praise to the Most High. But God bless everybody who's in this journey called life. I hope the best for everybody, and I hope the best for anybody. And I thank you again for your time.
Hey, God bless. Well said. Go ahead, James.
Oh, all right. Sorry, I was listening. I promise. So, I appreciate everything that everybody's had to say here. I want to be understood on one finer point before we go. When people tell me, let's say a Christian, for example, they tell me about miraculous personal experiences that they've had, things that they've seen, things that they've experienced, I believe them. Right? This isn't the issue for me. In the wider scope, when a Hindu comes to me or a Buddhist or anybody else comes to me with the same kinds of experiences, I believe them too, right? To be fair to everybody, to dignify that they're telling me the truth, and to show honor to their journey as they've experienced it, I have no reason to doubt them. I have no reason to negate them, and so I don't come at them as what you might call an atheist about these things. I think what happens is people understand their experiences in a cultural context based on a cultural narrative that they've been given, right? And so, for example, just to take an oddball example, somebody sees some weird shadowy figure at night skittering around, scares the crap out of them. Now, if they're from south of the border, you might say, "Oh, the chupacabra! I saw the chupacabra," right? But if you talk about somebody north of the border, then they might say, "Well, I saw a demon." Right? These are just narrative explanations for something that people have actually seen or experienced. And so when people talk about miracles, for example, or epiphanies or anything else, I think it's true. I think that there is something larger than all of this, bigger than us, that ties everything together for purpose and for grandeur and for glory and for beauty, for meaning. I believe that. I'm not atheist about this particular issue. It's just that when people talk about specific religious narratives that they use to explain it or to make sense of it, that's where we begin to diverge, because these are stories, and I understand the value of these stories because they unite people in their experience, and they give it name, they give it form, right? So that people can relate to the mystery of it, so that's not completely isolated or alien to them. And to the extent that has great utility and powerful utility, I'm glad for people that have that. But when people talk about these stories as if they're all literally true, that's where they begin to lose me, because I have no reason to think that that's the case. And so I'm not anti-God. I'm not rebelling against a God. It's just that my experience with story and culture has made me my framing of ideas incompatible with literalist religiosity. That's it, right? I'm not against God or anything like that. So I just want to be understood in context. In the meantime, my channel, everybody knows where to find it. You know my name. You've seen the information. I am going to go ahead and start a live stream. I'm going to take a shower first and clean my room. Then I'm going to do the stream. Anybody that wants to jump in and join in, feel free to.
Yeah, well said, and a lot of valid points. Again, not going to try to diminish anything you said, especially since we're closing the show.
Sure.
All of it's very sound, and your perspectives, and a lot of validity in a lot of it, and we all heard it. We'll all try to, continue to build, in the future. That's what we like to call these, more than conversations. We call them builds, and, head in the positive direction and aid each other's journeys, and do it through the direction that God himself has, shown us through mercy, love, gratitude, and those type of qualities. So, hey, everybody, thank you for watching. Got to end it sometime today, guys. I gave you guys your money's worth today. So I don't know when I'll do another stream in the near future, but stay positive, and God bless. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for watching, everybody. God bless.
God bless, bro. Thank you again. You have a good